This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's just gone 3 o'clock and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks, and also dating coach Kezia Noble. Coming up as Wes Streeting reveals his 10-year plan to revolutionise our health service, I'm asking, will Labour save the NHS? Now, his plans include rolling out smartwatches for people to monitor their own health from the comfort of their own homes. So what do you think? I'll also be doing my niggle on that as well. I've got a poll up right now on X throughout the show asking you that question. Will Labour really save the NHS? Cast your vote. I'll also be crossing live to Hyde Park, where heartbroken fans of Liam Payne have gathered to pay their respects to the late One Direction hero. Right now, they're holding a minute's silence. The legendary actor and singer Jess Conrad joins me in the studio for the interview. He'll be telling us the tales of his life as his autobiography From Blitz to Glitz is published. You won't want to miss that. And in clickbait, take a look at this video. It's gone viral, but what happens next?
Do currently have a California driver's license, you just don't have a physical copy on you at the moment.
That's my preferred method of identification.
And this is?
It's a cat collar. I'm currently identifying as a cat.
What happens next? Before we get started, let's get your latest news with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you, and a good afternoon to you. It's just gone 3 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Health Secretary will promise to turn the NHS into a neighbourhood health service as he launches a major consultation about the institution's next decade. Wes Streeting is set to invite patients and NHS staff to take part in a national conversation to shape the government's 10-year plan for the service next week. Millions of people are set to receive health monitoring smartwatches as part of Labour's plan to save the NHS. Announcing the consultation today, Mr Streeting said, "If we want to save the things we love about the NHS, then we have to change it." He spoke to our political editor, Christopher Hope, earlier on.
There will be a big focus in the budget around the investment in things like capital and tech so that we can make the system more efficient. But even where we're doing things like the 40,000 more appointments every week, that will also be achieved through reformed ways of working so we get more bang for the buck because, you know, people are feeling the pinch in their pockets at the moment.
Those cheating the benefits system could have their bank accounts raided by the Department for Work and Pensions. Private companies like airlines will also be forced to hand over information under new plans being drawn up by ministers, according to the Sunday Telegraph. The crackdown is set to be launched as part of Rachel Reeves's first budget, with the total savings set to be £1.6 billion over the course of the Parliament. Some have criticised the announcement for being too intrusive, but the Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall says it's absurd that the current measures have become so outdated. Official figures show the total cost of fraud to the economy last year was a record £7.3 billion. In other news, fans in the UK and around the world are holding vigils this weekend in memory of Liam Payne, the former One Direction star who died on Wednesday. A memorial event is taking place in London's Hyde Park this afternoon, with fans being encouraged to bring letters, drawings and flowers. A minute's silence will shortly be held at the Peter Pan statue. Bandmate Zayn Malik announced he'll reschedule his US tour after the heartbreaking death, and Liam's sister also paid tribute to her late brother. Liam's father visited the Casur Hotel in Argentina yesterday, where his son died. The Prime Minister says the whole country is behind Sir Chris Hoy following his terminal cancer diagnosis. Sir Keir posted on X saying, "Such sad news. Chris is a British sporting legend, and to face his diagnosis with such positivity is inspiring." The 48-year-old's been given a diagnosis and has 2 to 4 years left to live. Sir Chris told the Sunday Times, "As unnatural as it feels, this is the nature." He also told the newspaper he's known for a year that his cancer is terminal. In February, as he was undergoing treatment, including chemotherapy, Sir Chris said he felt forced to reveal his cancer diagnosis publicly. He's the third most decorated British Olympian of all time, with 6 career golds and 1 silver medal. King Charles and Queen Camilla joined a church congregation in Sydney for a Sunday service on the first day of engagement during their tour of Australia. It's the King's first visit to Australia since he became monarch in September 2 years ago. It's also the biggest trip the King has made since starting cancer treatment in February. Their 6-day visit to the Commonwealth country will involve celebrating the nation's people, culture and heritage. Following the church service, some young children who'd engaged with the royal couple spoke of their experience.
She asked me where we did Sunday school.
What did she say?
Over there.
Very good. Anyone else speak?
Yeah, he was asking us if we knew what the Bible was and if we studied it and if we had tests on it.
Wow. Anybody else?
She asked something. She asked about the congregation or something.
And what was it like to meet the King and Queen?
Really?
Moldovans head to the polls today to vote for both a presidential election and an EU referendum. The vote could decide whether the country moves closer to Europe or back towards Russia. Moldova applied to join the bloc after the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
It's fast approaching 7 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up on the show, Wes Streeting reveals his 10-year plan to revolutionise our health service. I'm asking for the Great British Debate this hour. Will Labour save the NHS? Plans include rolling out smartwatches for people to monitor their own health from the comfort of their own homes. I've got a poll up on X throughout the show asking you that very question. Cast your vote now. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are childless MPs better? Of course, this comes as Kemi Badenoch slapped down a Tory backbencher who said that she was too preoccupied with her children to be party leader, saying parenting is a 2-person job. Then how ridiculous is that? She's got 3 kids, Robert Jenrick's got 3 children. Then in Worldview, I'll be speaking to US expert Paul Dudridge as we get even closer to the presidential election across the pond. All of that on the way. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. But first, a memorial event is taking place in Hyde Park today to commemorate the former One Direction singer Liam Payne, who died after falling off a balcony in Argentina earlier this week. Now, fans have been encouraged to bring letters, drawings and flowers to honour his memory. In the meantime, his former One Direction bandmate, Zayn Malik, has announced that he will reschedule his tour following what he called the heartbreaking death of Liam Payne. Let's now go live to Hyde Park and speak to GB News reporter Jack Carson. Jack, talk to me about what the mood is like there. Obviously, people are clearly very sad, but what have people been saying about Liam?
Well, there is a lot of emotion here. You're right about that, Nana. I mean, you can see the hundreds of people that have gathered here in Hyde Park. This is the Peter Pan statue where these people are gathering. We've had flowers laid. You can probably see the balloons as well. The personal messages and tributes that people have also written and placed on this statue to Liam. Every so often, as you might be able to hear now, the crowd is breaking into spontaneous the One Direction's famous hits like What Makes You Beautiful, History, Best Song Ever, and others as well. So this is not only, a lot of people here mourning the loss of Liam Payne, how him and his music has affected them and helped them in maybe times in their life, but also actually a celebration of Liam Payne's life, what he was so good at, bringing this joy to people through their music. But we have been speaking to some people as well throughout the day and throughout the morning here while they've been at this. What they told us a little bit earlier on. How are you feeling at the moment, kind of, being here for this memorial?
I feel very lucky that I get to see this memorial because I've liked him since I was very, very young. So to see him pass now, it's very shocking. I'm still in a lot of denial.
Yeah, it was this how sudden it was. I think has shocked a lot of people. People didn't want to believe it at first because, of course, he was so young.
Yeah, he was only it was very confusing. I found out very late into the night when it happened, so it definitely affected me a lot more than I thought it would.
Why do you feel like you wanted to come today and come to this memorial for Liam?
To show my respect for him and that all the years I've supported him.
I mean, what kind of impact has him in his music? Was it One Direction? Was it him in his solo career? What kind of impact has he had on your life?
It was sort of both. I think he's more of my childhood than anything from One Direction.
I mean, what does it like, to see all the people that have gathered here today as well? There's a lot of people that liked him and want to pay their respects as well, isn't there?
I think it's good because his community's coming together to show their respect for him.
I mean, how did you feel when you heard about the news? It seemed really sudden, didn't it?
Yeah, it was very shocking and it didn't feel real.
Yeah, so as you can hear there, a lot of emotion from the people that we've been speaking to and a lot of shock still, really, at how someone so young has come to lose their life in such tragic circumstances. Obviously, those investigations are still underway. We've heard from officials who conducted a search of that hotel room that Liam fell from, saying that they found what appeared to be narcotics, alcohol, destroyed objects and furniture. The local spokespeople for the ambulance service within that Argentinian city saying that when they found the singer's body, he had injuries incompatible with life. And shortly after, Jeff Payne, Liam's father, has been in Buenos Aires over the past 48 hours to sort out the details, of course, of repatriating Liam's body to the United Kingdom in order for that funeral to take place. Lots of tributes over the past few days, more tributes to come as these people, hundreds of people that are gathering here in Hyde Park today, continue to lay flowers, to light candles and celebrate Liam's life.
Oh, all right, Jack Carson, thank you very much. That's Jack Carson there live in Hyde Park. If you just tuned in, welcome. 12 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Now, West Streeting has promised to turn the NHS into a neighbourhood health service as he launches a major consultation for the institution over the next decade. The Health Secretary wants to give millions of people smartwatch devices to track blood pressure, glucose spikes and monitor how cancer patients are responding to treatment. Well, joining me now is former NHS Trust Chairman Roy Lilly. Roy, thank you very much for joining me. So, Roy, on balance, do these... let's just talk about the notion that we can use smartwatches and this will help in some way for the NHS. Do you feel that that is a wise plan? Is that something that would potentially save money?
Yes, I do. And the NHS is doing it. I mean, diabetic patients have a monitored system that they can use, and Parkinson's disease patients have it. And heart patients, of course, can have monitors as well. So it's a well-trodden path. There's no question about it. It's a good idea. It does recruit the patient actually to sort of monitor themselves. And if they get a red flag, they can get in touch with their clinician and sort themselves out. So certainly it's the way forward, and it's the sort of digital first NHS that we all anticipate in the future. The difficulty with it is this, that once you get a red flag on a monitoring system, you've got to connect to somebody who's got to interpret what that is and figure out what you do next. So it's not a free pass to no care. It means often a lot more care. And that's good. And I'm not arguing about it, but I'm simply saying it's not a free pass to cheap care. It's expensive to do. And of course, somebody's got to buy the things, and somebody's got to connect them to a system that we can all read, and they've got to be connected into your patient's notes. So it's superficially great idea, but actually it's like with all these things, Nana, it's in the implementation that you get the problems.
And as you said, we're pretty much already doing it. I mean, for me, listening to it, I'm thinking, I've picked out exactly what you said. Once somebody says, oh, you've got high blood pressure, oh, well, you need some help for your diabetes, isn't the real problem that down the track there's a very limited care? Because, frankly, we have a massive waiting list, and I just don't feel that there was much in his plans that would actually deal with the actual issue, which are waiting lists, bed blocking, all that kind of thing.
I mean, now you put your finger on it. I mean, as you know, I'm a big fan of the NHS, you know that. And if there's something new or more money or whether I'll be first in the queue, I get all that. But in the run up to the election, there were three things that the public were worried about. It was migration, the economy, and the NHS. And the NHS polled always in the top three, and generally it was the thing that people were most worried about: waiting lists. Streeting's got one job. He's got to get waiting lists down. Now, all this other stuff that they're doing, a consultation and talking to everybody and the budget and the blah, blah, it's just smoke and mirrors, because they don't have a plan to get waiting lists down, or they have a plan. It's one I don't know about. I mean, you've got 50,000 people a week joining the waiting list. You've got 7.5 million people on the waiting list. They had a plan to tax non-DOMs differently, and the wheels have come off of that. They're supposed to be doing 40,000 more appointments a week. Somebody's got to pay for that. As far as I know, there's no guidance been issued to the NHS, and no NHS England haven't been told where the money's coming from. So, I mean, his big ticket item is he's got to get waiting lists down. All the time he's not doing that, he can distract us with all these other, shiny things. But at the end of the day, he's got to face the reality. What is he going to do? Because the long-range weather forecast, forgive me if I segue off here a bit, but the long-range weather forecast for this winter is not good. And you could talk to your meteorological lady and she'll give you more information. But it looks like we're heading for a pretty bad winter. If that is true, if we get exacerbations because of bad weather, and 7.6 million people on the waiting list, and people joining it all the time, the roof is going to come in, I tell you. I mean, he has got to create some headspace before we get the winter, and there's no plan.
Well, he wants 10 years. He's telling us that it's going to take him 10 years. People are on the waiting list. They ain't going to wait that long. I mean, what is he thinking? I just heard that. It's almost, I feel as though they're psychologically brainwashing us to think that, don't worry, things will change in a decade. It's going to take a decade. We haven't got that time.
It assumes they're going to get re-elected at the end of the 10 years. And then, OK, perhaps they are. OK, but what happens then? I mean, it is true. If you're going to, they're talking about these neighbourhood services now. They're what's called Darcy centres. They're like polyclinics. Lord Darcy did this for Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown spent a fortune on them. They didn't work. The doctors didn't like them. People wanted to go to their local GP practice because for most people in conurbations, you can walk to them. The clinics were all put in places. I mean, largely, a lot of them were built in hospital premises because they didn't have the land to put them anywhere. So, I mean, the whole thing, Andrew Lansley, who actually screwed up the NHS big time, he was the Secretary of State for Health for the Tories that followed Gordon Brown. The one good thing he did was to scrap the Darcy clinics, the polyclinics, because they cost a fortune. Yeah. There were no better clinical outcomes. And it looks like they're going to try and do it again. Well, if you're going to do that, just the practicality of it, acquiring the land, designing the thing, building it, going out to tender, building it, putting it up and commissioning the building, what are we looking at? Well, 3-5 years at best. And that's if they've got the money. There's a £20 billion deficit in repairs on our buildings already. Where's the new money going to come from? Are they going to spend it on new or repair the old?
All right. Well, listen, Roy Lilly, a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your thoughts. That is Roy Lilly. Right, well, this is GB News Live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, are childless MPs better? But first, can Labour save the NHS? This is GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Please tell me that we're British. In our darkest hour, we can work around this. The beer will still be flowing at Christmas. Tell me, please.
Martin, without using bad language, there's no words to describe that this is another major blow to the hospitality sector. I wake up every day with anxiety thinking, what's going to happen to us now? Oh my God, now the weather's against us. Not only are the government absolutely battering us, then the weather's now hitting us as well.
Kate Stewart, this can only mean one thing. Prices, once again, going through the roof.
And there's nothing we can do. We have on costs. We have to buy from the brewery. We have the VAT. We have then the VAT, what we take. It is an absolute nightmare. To be in the pub game now, Martin, is very, very difficult. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Everything just keeps hammering us from every different direction. And obviously, we have to pass that on to the customers, then price increases. There's nothing we can do. We don't want to sell beer at an inflated price. We want it as cheap as possible to get people through them doors. But we have no option. They're going to go up again in the new budget. There's no help for us. What are we supposed to do, Martin, except the only option is to close the doors and say, enough is enough. We can't do this anymore. I absolutely cry my eyes out having to put the prices up because you think, oh, my God, people are just going to turn away and walk. But we can't swallow the costs all the time, Martin. It's impossible for us to do because we will go bankrupt. There has to be there's inflation getting hammered on us yet again, and we have to pass it on. I feel it when I take my children out for something to eat. You're like, wow, that has just cost a fortune. But what is the answer? The answer is the government needs to look at saving the hospitality sector and stop being so greedy in everything that they take away from us, or there won't be pubs.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Right, it's 21 minutes after 3 o'clock. Welcome. If you just tuned in, it's fine. It's the beginning of the show, so I won't tell you off. It's later. If you tune in later, that's not good. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, I'm asking, can Labour save the NHS? Health Secretary Wes Streeting has vowed to revive the struggling NHS, kick off a national conversation on vital reforms. Earlier, GB News spoke to Wes Streeting. Here's what he had to say.
been in for 3 months. In that time, we've ended the junior doctors' strikes. We've introduced a ban on junk food targeted at kids. We've employed 1,000 more GPs onto the NHS front line. In the coming days, we'll be sending crack teams of clinicians into hospitals, not just with high waiting lists, but high numbers of people off work, off sick. And also, you know, just last week at the International Investment Summit, where we agreed £63 billion worth of deals with the private sector, some of that money was also earmarked for life sciences and groundbreaking treatments to tackle obesity. So I'm not pretending we've fixed it all in a few months. Of course, we're not going to do that, and I can't fix 14 years of problems in one budget. But we have hit the ground running. We're getting on with the job, and of course, the best is yet to come.
I'm not sure whether you heard that at home, but what he said was, of course, the best is yet to come. Well, it can't get any worse. It can only get better, let's be honest. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, can Labour save the NHS? Do you trust they can do that? Well, joining me is my panel, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks, also dating coach Kezia Noble. I'm going to start with you, Norman. Can Labour save the NHS? You've heard Wes Streeting's plan. He was talking about smart watches and things like that.
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you, yet. I think the jury's probably out. Where he's right is to say that we can't carry on as we are, and we can't keep pouring money in.
I could have said that. Anyone could say that.
We can't keep pouring money into a bottomless pit, so he's accepted that. And what we have to do, I think, is... The analysis is correct. We should move towards a more community-based arrangement so that people are dealt with cheaper, more cheaply, before they get to A&E and before they get to hospital. However, the great problem is this. You have to set up that system in advance of cancelling, as it were, the other system of getting people into A&E. So you have to double fund things for a period of time to get the community resources up. Whether or not Rachel Reeves has got the ability to do that or the willingness to do that remains to be seen.
Jeff Banks, do you think perhaps they're looking at it in the wrong way? I mean, should the NHS even be saved? Is there not a different thing we could be doing?
Well, as we actually spoke about last week, I was born in Ebervale, which was the MP was Nana Akua, who actually started the NH system under the Clement Attlee government. So I have an understanding of what the NHS was when it began. And I think there are three things that we actually need to recognise. One, when they set up the NHS, it was for an expectation which was much lower than it is today. So I think with the advance of modern medical science, the cost of everything is absolutely now phenomenal. An MRI scan, if you were paying for it privately, is about 1,500 quid. People expect that at the drop of a hat. So I think there's a big expectation that needs to be managed. Personally, I think the constant attack on the NHS and the morale, the undermining of morale that goes on, because a lot of it is broken, but it's not completely broken. Friends of mine that have come out of treatment in the NHS, they actually applaud it. It's fantastic. I think the nursing staff do an amazing job. It's not all broke. And then I think added to that, you've actually got, again, immigrants coming into the country, 6 million since the David Cameron government, that have now put an enormous pressure on the NH system to actually lift the population by 10% in 8 years. And their expectancy is that they get everything the minute they arrive at the door.
Kezia, I noticed you shaking your head when he mentioned about immigrants coming in the NHS.
I was nodding my head.
Yeah, as in moving your head, not nodding your head, yes. What are your thoughts?
So you mentioned we can't keep pouring money into the NHS. We also can't keep pouring people into the NHS also. You know, a lot of people say, but, the immigrants come and they, they work in the NHS. Let's just say that's true. Why aren't they not on work visas? Like they do in Dubai, for instance. You come in on a work visa, you get paid well, and then you go back. Because what's going to happen is those people are going to get old. And they're bringing also their older relatives with them. And they, even though are helping the NHS temporarily, are going to become, like me, like you, a burden. We all become burden on the NHS. We all do. We can't just keep quick fixing, saying, let's get more people from abroad, do the job, and then... just that's it. For the rest of their lives, they're here, having children, which is normal, yeah.
But ultimately, they are contributing to the system, Jeff Banks.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that, again, irritates me is that if you want to do a nursing degree, you have to pay £9,000 a year to do a nursing degree. I think one of the things the government could do is take away that responsibility, because that already, to have to get into debt for 27,000 quid to become a nurse in the first place, I think that's something that the government could immediately fix.
I totally agree with that. We need to be able to train more doctors and more nurses here in this country rather than having
and
to
we
look
should
abroad.
give them social housing.
Well, we could even think about that. The other thing is, of course, because there aren't enough nurses and doctors, hospitals are paying agency staff.
Yeah.
And they're paying an absolute fortune to get people in to do a job which really, if to train enough people, that wouldn't be necessary. There is waste in the NHS. I support the NHS. I think it's a great concept.
Yeah.
But there's waste in it. It needs to be eliminated. It's not just in terms of staff. There's duplication in terms of what particular consultants want. They want different medicines and so on. There's also far too much power, in my view, for the pharmaceutical industry, because people like getting drugs. And actually, sometimes the answer is not drugs. Sometimes it's exercise, it's alternative medicine, perhaps, it's herbalism, whatever it happens to be. We shouldn't always assume that the answer to something is an expensive drug.
But Labour are talking about West treating is psychologically preparing us for 10 years of their sort of improvements to... Do you think that's...
I think he's
should he have 10
another
years?
cheap trick minister. I think this thing of actually giving everybody watches, it's just another political cheap trick. It's like, that isn't going to solve anything. It's pouring another load of money into a gimmick. So I don't think he actually seems to me that somebody that understands how you reorganise, and I think Norman's absolutely right. I think big pharmacy has got a lot to play in this, that the actual amount of effort that goes into promoting drugs, getting people hooked on drugs, fixing that, that's an enormous expense. And I think the other thing, which is a problem in the NHS, is that, unfortunately, our GP system that used to exist for me when I was growing up, right up until about 10, 15 years ago, that they were always there, not just for medical reasons, even kind of psychological counselling. The GP was actually great. We somehow have kind of exited that, and now people actually go into A&E because they can't get an appointment with a GP, and that's putting another burden on.
Yeah, they just send you straight to A&E.
Straight to A&E.
So it's absolutely packed in the A&E of people having things which, you know, could have been fixed from a GP. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to go around this two ways. You've got to, first of all, stop flooding the country with more and more people who eventually become a burden or are already a burden. But also, you've got to make it more attractive for people to want to get into nursing. And I always say either give them a tax cut, those people who are literally in the front line, who are doing key jobs that we desperately need, or give them social housing. You know, give them an incentive to do it, because it's just they can't even afford a place to live near the hospitals that they're working at, so they're absolutely exhausted. These people are the priority. We should be giving them social housing, you know. Let
me give you an example of waste, how the system doesn't work.
Right.
And you've got the NHS on one side, you've got local government on another front with social care. Nobody wants to pick up the bill. So social care is inadequate. People are stuck in hospitals at vast expense to the taxpayer when it could be actually for their own benefit in somewhere more appropriate. You've got a situation I came across where somebody was needed a visit from the social services and they weren't going to get it. The consequence of that was they were sent to A&E once a week because of a mental health issue, once a week at A&E by ambulance. What's the cost of that? Because the county council wanted to save a bit of money on social care. That makes no sense at all.
No, it's absurd, isn't it? But what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Can Labour fix the NHS? I'll ask my panel very briefly. Norman Bacon, yes or no? Can they? Yes or no?
Probably not.
So is that a no?
Well, it's a probably not.
Just yes or no. You've got these are the options.
Well, it's on the no side.
Stop talking. Yes
on the
or
no
no
side.
No. Jeff Banks, yes or no?
Labour government haven't impressed me with anything so far, so I don't see why they're going to fix that one.
No.
Labour can't fix anything.
Perhaps they should fix themselves. Right, sorry. 31 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. The question I'm asking, coming up in the next Great British Debate, are childless MPs better? One Conservative backbencher thinks that being a mother will affect Kemi Badenoch's ability to be the Tory leader. Is he right? First, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. The top stories this hour. As you've been hearing, the Health Secretary will promise to turn the NHS into a neighbourhood health service as he launches a major consultation about the institution's next decade. Wes Streeting is set to invite patients and NHS staff to take part in a national conversation to shape the government's 10-year plan for the service next week. Millions of people are set to receive health monitoring smartwatches as part of Labour's plan to save the NHS. Announcing the consultation today, Mr Streeting said, "If we want to save the things we love about the NHS, then we have to change it." The Prime Minister says the whole country is behind Sir Chris Hoy following his terminal cancer diagnosis. Sir Keir Starmer posted on X saying, "Such sad news. Chris is a British sporting legend. To face his diagnosis with such positivity is inspiring." The 48-year-old's been given a diagnosis of 2 to 4 years to live. Sir Chris told the Sunday Times, "As unnatural as it feels, this is nature." He also told the newspaper he's known for a year that his cancer is terminal. In February, as he was undergoing treatment, including chemotherapy, Sir Chris said he felt forced to reveal his cancer diagnosis publicly. He's the third most decorated British Olympian of all time, with 6 career golds and 1 silver medal. Fans in the UK and around the world are holding vigils this weekend in memory of Liam Payne, the One Direction star who died on Wednesday. A memorial event is taking place in London's Hyde Park this afternoon, with fans encouraged to bring letters, drawings and flowers. A minute's silence has been held at the Peter Pan statue. Bandmate Zayn Malik announced he'll reschedule his US tour after the heartbreaking death, and Liam's sister also paid tribute to her late brother. Liam's father visited the Casur Hotel in Argentina yesterday, where his son died. And finally for now, King Charles and Queen Camilla joined a church congregation in Sydney for a Sunday service earlier today on the first day of engagements on their tour of Australia. In the King's first visit to Australia since he became monarch in September 2 years ago. It's also the biggest trip the King has made since starting cancer treatment in February. Their 6-day visit to the Commonwealth country will involve celebrating the nation's people, culture and heritage. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got Storm Ashley crossing the UK today, bringing some very strong winds, especially towards the northwest, with the rain gradually clearing towards the south. This is that area of low pressure named Storm Ashley. You can see a real squeeze in those isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds. We've got an amber warning in force, gusts of up to 70, possibly even 80 miles per hour, with outbreaks of showery rain through this evening and overnight. Drier towards the south, across Wales and southern parts of England, with lighter winds here as well. Otherwise staying rather mild tonight, generally lows 10 or 11 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is still going to be windy, especially across Scotland and towards Orkney and Shetland. Again, gusts 50 to 60, possibly even 70 miles per hour. There will be some brightness to start the day across eastern areas, though, through Monday morning, but showers already moving through across parts of western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, it is going to be largely cloudy, especially the far southeast you go, perhaps even with some outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning across the Channel Islands. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, blustery showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, largely dry, some hazy sunshine, cloudier towards the far southeast, where we may just see some heavy spells of rain. But there will be lighter winds out there compared to Sunday. Temperatures a little bit cooler at around 15 or 16 degrees. So through Monday evening, showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards the south, though, largely dry with clear skies as we go into Tuesday. But Tuesday leaves sunny spells, scattered showers, a little bit drier on Wednesday before turning a bit unsettled later in the week.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home? Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits.
Chemistry, Tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 37 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget as well, you can download the GB News app. It is completely free and you can check out all the programmes on the channel. But let's talk childless MPs, because one MP thought that potentially a childless MPs are better. Kemi Badenoch was slapped down by a Tory backbencher who said that she was too preoccupied with her children to be party leader, saying parenting is a two-person job. She said dads need to steep up more after... Steep up more? Am I making this up? So Christopher Chope said that she might lack the time and energy to combine being leader with motherhood. She has 2 daughters and a son from 11 to 5, but her opponent, Robert Jenrick, also has 3 daughters, aged 12, 10 and 8. What does that sound like to you? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are childless MPs better? Well, joining me in my panel, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks, and also dating coach Kezia Noble. Kezia Noble, I'm going to come to you first.
Let's be honest here. These kids have 24-hour nannies. It's not making any difference. If they had no nannies, they were literally... she was running to the school gates to pick their kids up at 3:30. I'd be like, yeah, you can't do this. You cannot run a country and be a full-time parent. It's impossible. I don't have a life anymore, because I have children. So they have nannies, first of all, makes no difference. But what I found when I became a mum is I did change, and I became more sympathetic, more understanding. I changed, and I think I got better. So it can be a good thing. But then again, I know a lot of people who don't have children who are very decent people who can think very clearly. And I just think it's just pointless. Like, because as long you can be very intelligent, make smart choices if you have children, if you don't have children. So if they're talking about how this is going to be something like such as it's going to be a distraction for her because she has children. That's just nonsense, because I'm telling you, she has nannies. If you have nannies, that's it. You can just get on running the country.
Jeff Banks.
I think it's a clear statement that women can't be ministers. I think that's the message to me. I actually look at 2 prime ministers that didn't have children, and I just ask the question, were they great prime ministers? Theresa May being one of them, and Ted Heath being another.
The other one?
Ted Heath.
Oh, goodness.
So I question their validity as prime ministers. I actually think a family, which is what the structure of our country should be all about, is of critical importance. And I think MPs that have children, that understand the basics of bringing up kids, what the values should be that you're going to impart on them, what life is like, actually getting them to school, actually having to get them into preschool breakfast club because you've got a job to do, the pressure on mothers to actually put them into after-school club if they don't finish work till 6 o'clock. All of those are pressures on a family, and I think those pressures create family value. And I think if you have an MP with the responsibility of a family, the chances are they're going to understand life in Britain for the ordinary working class person much better than if they're without. That would be my opinion.
Norman Baker.
Christopher Chope, who's the MP who's made this comment, is a dinosaur and a terrible MP, as a matter of fact, and he's stuck in the past. And I think what I've objected about this is It's one rule for men and one rule for women. He's not asking the same thing about Robert Jenrick, is he, and his kids? You've had Tony Blair number 10, you've had David Cameron number 10 who got kids. It's perfectly possible to run a life and be a minister and be an MP. People do it. And to pick on Kemi Badenoch in this way, I think is quite wrong. Why can't she have kids and have a normal life and be a minister if she wants to be a minister? That's perfectly possible. So there's a difference between men and women. That's how Christopher Chope is judging it, and he's wrong to do so.
Maybe they see women, they see women that don't have children as more like masculine and more tough.
Yes,
That's what they want, someone like that.
And if you look,
Margaret Thatcher had 2 children.
Exactly.
Twins.
And if you look,
she was very tough.
The Conservative Party, I don't know if it's changed or not, but the Conservative Party didn't want female candidates who had kids, and they were ruled out from the selection process if that was the case. When I was in government and the ministers, the female ministers in the cabinet, the Conservative ministers in the cabinet, none of them had children. And that's because they wouldn't have got selected had they had kids.
Yeah.
So the Conservative Party needs to change and modernise itself.
But I actually think if you look at women, they take responsibility for the family and are great at juggling everything, better than men. That you can actually get women that talk about multidisciplining, that actually can hold down a job, run a family, organise the weekly shop, get the kids to school, worry about their clothes, worry about their new shoes, and so on, and they manage to do all that. Us blokes, we're not very good at it. We're actually a bit singular in that, and we kind of feel we're being lumbered if we actually...
I know a couple of single dads that have done very good jobs.
Yes, I agree with that.
And,
you do?
And they have that stigma. So when they go, and I know them, and they go to the school gates and no one wants to talk to them, and they're the single fathers, they have it even worse.
But generally, don't you think women are better at doing it than men?
I think some single fathers are incredible.
OK.
They do incredible
I think
job.
women are designed better to do that, so physiologically and biologically.
When they're babies, I don't think when they're older. I think when they're past 4... I think the fathers and mothers do just as good job.
I do think that women are designed, obviously, to be child bearers and so on and so forth.
Babies, yeah.
So we are designed for that. So that's fine. I can accept my, in a sense, place as a woman and my role as a woman in terms of a child-bearing role. But that does not make me a lesser or worse politician than somebody who does or doesn't have kids. But I think if I listen to this, this is almost like a sexist comment.
This is a sexist comment.
This is sexism because Robert Jenrick has 3 kids.
And they both have nannies, so it's just a stupid argument. They both have nannies.
Well, they both have nannies, exactly.
That's it. They both can concentrate on the job in hand just as well as each other.
Well, and I know somebody who is now become sort of a single dad, having to look after his 2 children, and he's single. I was a single mum as well, and it's quite interesting to hear him say that he has now the utmost respect for women.
I mean, I find that a bit elitist that you say, oh, they can have nannies. I mean...
They have
nannies. I can guarantee you they have nannies.
Probably do.
So that's it. So they can focus on the job. If she had to do what I do, run to the school gates at 3:30, wake them up, feed them everything, take care all the time.
Well, there's after-school clubs.
I would not be able to run this country.
Yeah, but there are after-school clubs and things like that.
You know what it's like, Nana. 5 o'clock and they're calling you already. Get here now.
But you say that, but I've been carrying myself all by myself, doing my thing as a single mum. Yeah. I love it, and I'm very good at it. So I think that comment's a nonsense. But listen, what do you think? GBNews.com/you'll say. But next, Worldview. My Paul Dudridge, host of the Politics People podcast, will be up next to give us the latest stateside. Don't go anywhere.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You must be so proud of your daughter being so just amazingly brave and a model for other people who face illness.
I think we're proud of her all day, every day, and always have been. Liz has always given her all to anything she put her mind to, whether that was studying for her GCSE exams at school or whether it's been her photography and battling cancer. Liz never does anything by half, and we are so incredibly proud of her each and every day.
And Liz, I noticed a wonderful line from you saying that when you've got cancer, A-levels don't matter so much. That seems to me to be a very reasonable view to take and has given you then the chance to do these other amazing things that you will be doing more of in future with the London Ambulance Service. And I imagine many people will want to help you with your bucket list because they've now seen you and seen how brave you are.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've already been overwhelmed by the responses and the support by so many people. I think when my mum originally posted the list, it received like 4,000 replies. It was insane, and still there's more. So from the bottom of our hearts, and especially mine, we just want to say thank you, because there's nothing that forces anyone to get in touch and say, hey, I have something you can do, pop over and do this or that, or it's just out of the generosity of their hearts. So thank you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, welcome. This is GB News, 49 minutes after 3 o'clock. It's fast approaching. I'm Nana Akua. Now, of course, time is running out for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump to convince American voters, especially in the swing states, to give them their vote for president. And early voting already has begun in many of them. The candidates are adding a renewed emphasis to their urges to voters to get out and submit their ballots. So let's cross over live to Los Angeles to speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudridge, because it's Worldview. Let's get the latest. Paul Dudridge, right. Let's do this. Let's talk about this, because scenarios are beginning to circulate that Trump could lose the vote and still gain power. How would that be possible?
Well, you remember in 2020, when apparently Biden won, he didn't have the support of his own party. OK, and so all this stuff that you hear about sending the electors back and, disputing electors, we can vote as much as we like. The actual electors, the so-called electors in each state, are the actual people that decide the election. It's a formality, but it's got some power. And so now almost all these swing states have MAGA mini parliaments in them. Their state legislature, basically mini MAGA. MAGA has taken over the Republican Party. So if we get a knife edge result, Trump is going to, this is what the discussion is, Trump is going to sue. And he's going to sue in every one of those knife edge decisions to try and get the results overturned and recast and reballoted. So that is a very live strategy. If he loses on the 5th, this won't be over on the 6th, is the point. He actually now has the backing of the Republican Party. One of the biggest things that's happened over the last few years, and I get this from Democrat commentators thinking that it's all going to be over on November the 5th. Trump is out and Trump is done. The Republican Party is now the MAGA party, and it will actually do his bidding. And that means a lot in these local elections, these local electorate. And so he's going to actually have that power to wield. So he could feasibly be able to reject the ballot in several states if it doesn't go his way, or if it's on a knife edge, if it's disputable, and have that redone.
Now, early voting has already started, and people are apparently saying that the Democrats are taking an early lead on the actual turnout. But I'm wondering, though, because I heard that recently that Trump was actually ahead, 55-45.
It's a tough one. He is doing really well. Democrats traditionally, the Democrat Party have traditionally adopted early voting. And this was one of the things that Trump was suspicious about after 2020 was that, no, they kind of, anyway, that's his angle. And he was always against early voting because it was up for corruption, was his feel. However, after 2020, he has encouraged, and the Republican Party have encouraged everybody on his side to get out and vote early. So early voting, I think there's 13 million votes have been cast. Now that 55-45 is absolutely true. You get in Georgia, it looks like the early voting has gone 2-1 to him. Okay. In Pennsylvania, it looks like the early voting has gone 2-1 to her. So we're getting early voting in particular states is favoring either candidate. But the point is, at least this time, Trump is encouraging early voting when he was actively discouraging it in 2020. So look, everything is so... it's so tight. Every little bit of information we get seems to come back and he's look. The statistic that I think is important is that if he outperforms the polls the way he did in 2020, apparently he lost, but if he does the same performance, they were 2 to 6% wrong on his actual vote tally. If he does the same again with the current figures, he wins.
Right. Okay. So what's happened to Joe Biden? Because he's still the president.
You told me.
I
thought he was with you. You asked him.
He's in the background. Where is he? I mean, is he still with Kamala? I mean, is he going to campaign with her or what? Where has he gone?
I think he's working for the Trump campaign. I mean, there was a photo a few weeks ago where he's wearing a MAGA hat.
No.
He despises the Harris campaign, and that's not conjecture. I'm pretty confident to say that. There are no plans. Well, yeah, because look at how he's been ousted. He was going to run. Now, he might have intended to hand over to her after he won, or hand over to his running mate after he won. But look, the Obamas have been announced that they're coming out and campaigning for Harris. This is exceptional because you think about it, Al Gore with Clinton, even Bush Sr. with Reagan, they always had the president there to actually campaign with them. Not this time. Harris and Biden are not on
Can I very
speaking
quickly
terms
ask you,
campaign-wise.
about 20 seconds, Donald Trump, McDonald's, what's going on?
Oh, Kamala claims to have worked at McDonald's as a summer job when she was a student. We can't find any evidence of it anyway, so he's going to McDonald's today in Pennsylvania to actually work at a McDonald's to prove that he's the one candidate that actually has.
All right, Paul Dudridge, host of the Politics People podcast, thank you so much. Right, stay tuned. Next up, my niggle. Are smart watches for the NHS the way forward? But first, let's get an update with your weather with Karen. Remember, stay in touch, gbnews.com/your say. I will read some of those comments in a moment.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got Storm Ashley crossing the UK today, bringing some very strong winds, especially towards the northwest, with the rain gradually clearing towards the south. This is that area of low pressure named Storm Ashley. You can see a real squeeze in those isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds. We've got an amber warning in force, gusts of up to 70, possibly even 80 miles per hour, with outbreaks of showery rain through this evening and overnight. Drier towards the south, across Wales and southern parts of England, with lighter winds here as well. Otherwise staying rather mild tonight, generally lows 10 or 11 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is still going to be windy, especially across Scotland and towards Orkney and Shetland. Again, gusts 50 to 60, possibly even 70 miles per hour. There will be some brightness to start the day across eastern areas, though, through Monday morning, but showers already moving through across parts of western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, it is going to be largely cloudy, especially the far southeast you go, perhaps even with some outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning across the Channel Islands. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, blustery showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, largely dry, some hazy sunshine, cloudier towards the far southeast, where we may just see some heavy spells of rain. But there will be lighter winds out there compared to Sunday. Temperatures a little bit cooler at around 15 or 16 degrees. So through Monday evening, showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards the south, though, largely dry with clear skies as we go into Tuesday. But Tuesday leaves sunny spells, scattered showers, a little bit drier on Wednesday before turning a bit unsettled later in the week.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
This good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's just gone 4 o'clock. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks, and dating coach Kezia Noble. Coming up, we'll be crossing live to Hyde Park, where fans of Liam Payne have gathered to pay their respects to the late One Direction hero. Coming up, as Wes Streeting reveals his 10-year plan to revolutionise our health service, I'm asking, will Labour save the NHS? I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. What are your thoughts? Plans also include rolling out smartwatches for people to monitor their own health from the comfort of their own homes. Stay tuned. What do you think? Will Labour save the NHS? Cast your vote now. The legendary actor and singer Jess Conrad joins me in the studio for the interview. He'll be telling us the latest tales of his life. His autobiography From Blitz to Glitz is being published. You won't want to miss that. And in clickbait, take a look at this video. What happens next?
Do currently have a California driver's license, you just don't have a physical copy on you at the moment.
That's my preferred method of identification.
And this is?
It's a cat collar. I'm currently identifying as a cat.
What do you think happens next? Before we get started, let's get your latest news with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you. A very good afternoon to you. It's just gone 4 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. As you've been hearing, the Health Secretary will promise to turn the NHS into a neighbourhood health service as he launches a major consultation about the institution's next decade. Wes Streeting is set to invite patients and NHS staff to take part in a national conversation to shape the government's 10-year plan for the service next week. Millions of people are set to receive health monitoring smartwatches as part of Labour's plan to save the NHS. The party has pledged to build an NHS fit for the future. Announcing the consultation today, Mr Streeting said, if we want to save the things we love about the NHS, then we have to change it. He spoke to our political editor, Christopher Hope, earlier on.
There will be a big focus in the budget around the investment in things like capital and tech so that we can make the system more efficient. But even where we're doing things like the 40,000 more appointments every week, that will also be achieved through reformed ways of working so we get more bang for the buck because, you know, people are feeling the pinch in their pockets at the moment.
Elsewhere, those cheating the benefits system could have their bank accounts raided by the Department for Work and Pensions. Private companies, like airlines, will also be forced to hand over information under new plans being drawn up by ministers, according to the Sunday Telegraph. The crackdown is set to be launched as part of Rachel Reeves's first budget, with the total savings set to be £1.6 billion over the course of the Parliament. Some have criticised the announcement for being too intrusive, but the Work and Pension Secretary, Liz Kendall, says it's absurd that the current measures have become so outdated. Official figures show the total cost of fraud to the economy last year was a record £7.3 billion. In other news, the Prime Minister says the whole country is behind Sir Chris Hoy following his terminal cancer diagnosis. Sir Keir posted on X saying, such sad news. Chris is a British sporting legend. To face his diagnosis with such positivity is inspiring. The 48-year-old has 2 to 4 years left to live. Sir Chris told the Sunday Times he's known for a year that his cancer is terminal. While undergoing treatment in February, Sir Chris said he felt forced to reveal his cancer diagnosis publicly. He's the third most decorated British Olympian of all time, with 6 career golds and 1 silver medal. Fans in the UK and around the world are holding vigils this weekend in memory of Liam Payne, the One Direction star who died on Wednesday. A memorial event is taking place in London's Hyde Park this afternoon, with fans encouraged to bring letters, drawings and flowers. A minute's silence has been held at the Peter Pan statue. Liam's father visited the Casur Hotel in Argentina yesterday where his son died, while his bandmate Zayn Malik announced he'll reschedule his US tour after the heartbreaking death. King Charles and Queen Camilla joined a church congregation in Sydney for a Sunday service on the first day of engagements during their tour of Australia. In the King's first visit to Australia since he became monarch in September 2 years ago, it's also the biggest trip the King has made since starting cancer treatment in February. Their 6-day visit to the Commonwealth country will involve celebrating the nation's people, culture and heritage. Following anti-monarchy protests in the country leading up to the visit, the former Australian High Commissioner to the UK, George Brandis, told GB News this earlier on.
I don't remember a time since these polls first began to be taken in the late 1970s when support for a republic was as low as 33%. Usually it sits somewhere in the mid-40s. And I think that reflects the fact that the issue, Australians are sick of this issue. We've heard too much about it for so long, and we've really moved on. It's very much, I think, yesterday's issue.
And finally this afternoon, Moldovans head to the polls today to vote for both a presidential election and an EU referendum. The vote could decide whether the country moves closer to Europe or back towards Russia. Moldova applied to join the bloc after the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
GB News, we're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. Now, first of all, let's go live to a memorial event. It's taking place in Hyde Park today, commemorating former One Direction singer Liam Payne, who died after falling off a balcony in Argentina earlier this week. Fans have been encouraged to bring letters, drawings, flowers and all those sorts of things to honour his memory. In the meantime, do apologise for some of that flash photography that you may be seeing in there. Meanwhile, his former One Direction bandmate Zayn Malik has also announced that he will reschedule his tour following what he calls the heartbreaking death of Liam Payne. Well, let's go live to Hyde Park now. Let's speak to GB News reporter Jack Carson. Jack, talk to me. I hear earlier people were singing and doing all sorts of things. What's been happening there?
Yeah, we've had more of that singing as well. A lot of celebration, really, of Liam Payne's life, a celebration from these people here that have gathered in Hyde Park today. There's still certainly a lot of emotion as well, raw emotion, as a lot of these people mourn the loss of Liam, who many have told us today that it feels like they've lost, you know, a friend, a family. Such is the relationship that they have with the music of Liam Payne, with the music of One Direction as well. Flowers, tributes, balloons let go as well, and we've just had the finishing of another minute silence. We've had 2 minute silences today, one at 3 o'clock, one at 4 o'clock, to remember and pay tribute to Liam, for many people to pay their own silent respects. And Sabrina now, who's a fan that's come here to the memorial today. Sabrina, I mean, what are your feelings being here?
Oh my God, it's so crazy because it's just like I love so much for him, and so you feel like you're with your family because every single person here understands what you're feeling because they are Directioners, they are Liam Paynes, and we are all together united. You know, these are people that I don't know them, but I feel like I do. They're my sisters, they're my brothers, they are everything, and they understand what I'm going through, which is great. Everyone goes through different mourning stages, so some people are raw right now, busy crying, and some people are here to celebrate, sing and scream, celebrate him and all he's done. He's saved so many of our lives, including mine, and I want to celebrate that.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Is it his music, the way it's, you know, maybe it's connected with you? What do you mean by that?
So, you know, when you're at your lowest, I've had a hard time when I was younger, you know, just going into my room and listening to music, looking at old interviews, just really happy. And yeah, so he just brings out, you know, him and One Direction. It was something that it just made you so happy, and you took from your lowest, like I said, and you connect with their music, you connect with everything about them, and so we're so thankful for him, and it's so sad. I feel like a part of my childhood is gone, like a little part of it. Yeah, it's a bit broken, and people are always like, but you don't know him. But I feel like I do. He is, yeah, like I said, part of my childhood, and I'm very grateful for him because he saved me, so.
Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That's just another view of one of the One Direction fans that's gathered here for the memorial. Those tributes continue to be read out, to be written, to be brought here in flowers and in photos here in Hyde Park.
All right, Jack Carson, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Well, coming up at my monologue, stay tuned, don't go anywhere. It's just coming up to 10 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online, on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. The NHS has been a thorn in the political side of every government that I can remember. The sacred cow that cannot be touched. Dare you say a bad word, you be castigated. Well, Wes Streeting, our new Health Minister, has been making the right sound bites. So I was expecting that now he's in government, that he would come up with something far better than this. A 10-year plan to save the NHS. For starters, the wording is wrong. It's psychologically brainwashing us into believing that Labour need 2 terms in office to complete the job. Well, I'm not giving any of them 10 years. We need solutions now. That's no good for people who are sick and need help right now. So what is his solution? Smartwatches. Are you having a laugh? Seriously, Wes. Under a 10-year plan, many will be given smartwatches to track blood pressure, glucose spikes, and the watches will even monitor how cancer patients are responding to treatment. Now, here's a bit of what the Health Secretary had to say when he spoke to GB News this morning.
We've seen more money and more staff poured in, but without the reform. And I think the lesson of the last Labour government that delivered the shortest waiting times and the highest patient satisfaction in history is that it's investment plus reform that delivers results. And that's why a big focus of me, the Chancellor, is about how we make sure that alongside any investment that goes in, we improve the productivity of the system. There will be a big focus in the budget around the investment in things like capital and tech so that we can make the system more efficient. But even where we're doing things like the 40,000 more appointments every week, that will also be achieved through reformed ways of working so we get more bang for the buck, because, you know, people are feeling the pinch in their pockets at the moment, and right across the public sector we've got pressures. So we can't just keep on pouring more money in without reform. That would be a waste of money we don't have and a waste of time that we don't have as well.
So it was a great plan. Smartwatches. I mean, this has completely missed the point. In 10 years, we'll probably all naturally be wearing our phones on our wrists, which is what we'll probably be doing. What he's actually proposing is spending taxpayers' money on something most people will buy anyway to track conditions, and that will still be putting on waiting lists for treatment. It's all very well knowing how high your blood pressure is and all those kind of things, but the problem is getting the treatment, and the treatment that will fix it. All the devices packed on apps are already available in any case to do that sort of thing. It's hardly groundbreaking, and as you know, a lot of this is happening anyway. His plan is that people will be treated at home, but that's pretty much where we are now, because people at home are dealing with ailments alone because they're on a waiting list that has over 7 million people on it. How will this be any different? Well, Wes said our 10-year health plan will turn the NHS on its head, transforming it into a neighbourhood health service powered by cutting-edge technology, so I presume that's the smartwatches, that helps us stay healthy and out of hospital. We will rebuild the health service around what patients tell us they need. Really? Most patients on the waiting list know what they need. I'm sorry, Wes, but this claptrap is just ridiculous. You haven't got 10 years anyway. I want to see your 5-year plan. This is all just an excuse. It's smoke and mirrors to get out of being called a failure in 5 years. Wes wants to move care from hospitals to the community. Well, they practically are in the community because patients are nursing issues at home with support for friends and family. So there's not really any change there. He's planning Fitbit-style devices which will be given to people who have had strokes, and smartwatches will monitor tremors for those with Parkinson's. But that kind of happens in many cases anyway. There will be far less reliance on GPs. Again, no real change there. A lot of people are now going private or using private doctors. The local GP practitioner type thing is almost already becoming obsolete. I mean, you try getting an appointment, Wes. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying this at all. This is all very reactionary, not proactive in the slightest. It's not really dealing with the actual issues, is it? How are you going to cut waiting lists? How are you going to change the structure of the NHS? And in particular, what about the ridiculously bloated structure of managers? How much is all of this going to cost? In my view, he hasn't addressed the actual issues. Of course, technology should be used, but unless there is root and branch reform, a phrase I'm pretty sure he coined, the NHS will continue to be a black hole. So before we get stuck into the debates, here's what else is coming up in this hour. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are smartwatches the way forward? This comes as Health Secretary Wes Streeting announces plans to give millions of Brits smartwatches as part of Labour's 10-year plan to save the NHS. Then, in my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should primary school children be lectured on slavery and colonialism? and as Chief Constable of Norfolk Police calls for whole system reform to punish shoplifters as quickly as the summer rioters, we'll be discussing whether law and order have broken down in the UK. All of that is on the way. As ever, send me your comments, post your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. All right, let's talk smart watches. Joining me now about Labour's plans for the NHS is Dr Basha Mukherjee. She's a junior doctor. All right, so what are your thoughts? Smart watches, I mean, is this some groundbreaking solution? Aren't we doing something like this in any case?
I think what you said, Nana, was very true, that we already have the technology. I'm curious to see how Wes Streeting is going to actually unify this technology and reduce the burden on essentially humans, which is what Labour are trying to do. They're trying to incorporate technology so that we are less reliant on physical humans. But regardless of this, regardless of using technology, there is going to be reliance on doctors, nurses to interpret these results. So I'm curious to see if he's got a plan to actually collect this information from the smartwatches that he's planning to roll out, and if it's going to go into a central system, maybe using AI to interpret it, to alert doctors to naturally book an appointment, book a follow-up, book a a scan or something like that after interpreting these results. That relies less on somebody going through paperwork, entering more data into a computer. I'm curious to see if that's what he has got planned, because that's truly what we need. We need less reliance on physical humans doing this, because we know humans is where we get the human errors, essentially. And if we can bring in technology to cut that red tape, which is part of the Labour pledge, what they made before they came into power, I'm really curious about that.
But I think we're all curious about what he's going on about, because, frankly, even if you have all this diagnostics and you cut out the middle humans, as it were, you still need enough beds, enough hospital spaces, you still need all the technology to power everything, and you need to solve bed blocking. Now, I'm not hearing him talk about those things, and I want to know that. To me, this sounds like smoke and mirrors. No?
Yeah, I 100% agree in terms of the numbers of beds and availability on waiting lists. But we must acknowledge the fact that a large part of the problem is the amount of admin load that is there on the NHS, the amount of steps there are to just getting a referral through, the referral reaching the right body, the referral then being read through and vetted, and then the appointment being given to patients. So if some of this unnecessary workload can be reduced through technology and sped up, I can see that this would speed up the process of waiting lists and patients being seen quickly by secondary care much more. Equally, I want to say that I think there is a benefit to using technology which is in the hands of the patients. I suspect that I don't know if this is what Wes has in mind, but if I was in his position, I would try to make a society which would be better at knowing their own body. And if that means they're using technology where they can recognize where something's wrong with themselves and act on it, I think that is a positive, working towards a positive direction. I'm not sure if that's what Wes has in mind, though.
I think a lot of us are very curious about what he has in mind. Dr. Basha Mukherjee, thank you very much. Very good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Well, what do you think? gbnews.com/you'll say you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. Next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are smartwatches the way forward? Stay tuned.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
A furious online debate has been sparked after, well, let's just say a rather large man, I mean, he really was big, was snapped trying to fit into his seat on a plane.
It's led to some to ask whether obese passengers should have to pay for extra plane seats so they don't inconvenience others.
Some say, though, that's cruel. So should plus-size passengers pay extra for plane seats? Let's talk to former presenter of Fat Families, Steve Miller, who's in Stratford-upon-Avon, and the director of All About Obesity, Sarah LeBrock, who's in beautiful Harrogate. Good to see you both this morning. Sarah, what do you think?
Well, we've had this debate before with Steve and I, to be fair, and I think it's one of those things where planes are just not fit for purpose anymore. So people's bodies have been growing over the years. We know this, the obesity rates are increasing, etc. But what's happening to planes is the seats are decreasing in size. So they're just not fit for purpose and not fit for the population. So I think it's just one of these things where we need to be more empathetic to people, that they're trying to fit into an environment that isn't shaped for them at all. So I think we do need to kind of say, well, what's right here? Is it the person not being able to fit in the seat, or is it the seat not being fit for purpose for the person. And I think we need to really, look at things from that perspective as well. Instead of thinking the person's doing something wrong, how about the environment might be doing something wrong?
Steve?
It's not about blaming, but the message you can't put out, in my opinion, is that it's okay to be obese and don't worry about it. You see, what I'm saying here is free plane seats. If you're offering free plane seats, an extra seat, that's going to normalise obesity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 22 minutes after 4 o'clock. Welcome. If you just tuned in, where have you been? So you're here now. It's good. Good. We're halfway through. I'm Nana Akua. Now, let's have a look at some of what you've been saying, because we've been discussing many things so far. We're talking about Labour and the NHS. Clark says, I would not trust Labour to save the NHS. They would be out of their depth in a car park puddle. Benny says, Labour don't have a plan for the NHS. They know in 5 years it's not going to be their problem because they'll be back in opposition. That's why we keep hearing it's going to take more than 5 years to get the country going again. I think you're probably right on that. Colleen says, let's give Labour a chance to save the NHS rather than rubbishing them before they've started. No, they have started. Remember the 100 days? 100 and how many days? What a mess. What an absolute disaster. Right now, though, let's do it. Let's do the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are smartwatches the way forward? It's all part of a 10-year plan to save the NHS. Health Secretary Wes Streeting announced millions of Brits will be given these health monitoring devices to help them track blood pressure, glucose levels and even cancer patient monitoring. It's all hoped that, therefore, it will prevent serious illness and allow more people to be treated at home. So, what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Are smartwatches the way forward? Let's discuss this with my panel. Former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks and dating coach Kezia Noble. I'm going to start with you, Jeff Banks.
I actually do quite a lot of sport. I do half an hour in the gym every day and I ride my bike a lot at the weekends. And I've used a smartwatch from time to time to actually watch my heart rate, etc., etc., etc. I think this is a gimmick to actually start giving away thousands of watches to monitor people's health. I think more importantly is that if people had regular health checks, particularly men, men are actually very worried about going to the doctors, getting a check on prostate and things like that. And if they did it regularly, annually, I think a lot of the things that actually do get picked up would actually get picked up automatically. And that brings us back to getting an appointment with your GP, who are overburdened. And I think to try and get an appointment these days is difficult.
Exactly.
But I think that's more important than some gimmick of giving everybody a smartwatch.
Norman Baker.
I find it a rather bizarre suggestion, to be perfectly honest with you. They're talking about not thousands, but millions. In fact, they're saying millions of these watches to be handed out. I don't know what the cost of that is, but the NHS is short of money, so that seems to be a big dollop of cash to spend on this. Presumably people will lose them and not have them when they come back and say, I've lost it, what happens now? I don't think it's going to work. I mean, I think the Labour's idea of having community-based health, which is what they've said they want to achieve, is right, and a GP should be the centre of that, and we should be taking people out of A&E, all those things we talked about before in the last hour. But this is irrelevant in my view. I can't see the point of it is.
Kezia Noble.
I won't be wearing one of these watches. It's big state monitoring us again. Just eat less, do more exercise, try not to smoke, and you've got a good chance of not being a burden on the NHS that way. I agree with you. I think it's a gimmick. I think it's a gimmick. It's not going to help anybody. Maybe it'll help a handful of people, but what's so hard about keeping healthy? We all know what it means to keep healthy, OK? Stop eating the junk. The big one is obesity. Stop eating the junk food. Stop eating too much. We were talking about this, you know, in the green room, about this portion control. So much of it is about portion control, not even what you eat, just if you don't eat as much. I mean, why are they not giving that message out?
Listen, I don't think they're giving out smart watches because they're extremely expensive. Who's going to pay for this stuff? I mean, ridiculous.
Taxpayers.
But they do have a purpose. So they are useful, as you said, Jeff. You use them in monitoring your heart rate, blood pressure, that sort of thing. And I do think it's wise to encourage people in that direction. But actually handing out... I mean, my smartphone cost me like over £1,000. How much will each of these devices cost? And as Norman pointed out, what if you lose the thing? They give you another one.
I mean, look, at the moment, if you go to a GP and they think an issue with blood pressure, they can lend you, if you haven't got one, a device to measure your blood pressure for a week, and you bring it back to the surgery with your results. I mean, you can have a smartwatch handed out on that basis, controlled by the GP and recovered from the patient after the information's been gathered. Giving them out to willy-nilly to people, to, you know, like sweets, is mad.
Do you know one of the smartest things for me that's come out of the American presidential election is Trump getting Robert Kennedy Jr. on board, specifically to look at the health of America. In America, you've got 80% obesity in America, 80%. And a lot of it is due to, like, again, the domination of certain food producers and what the American diet is. And we're seeing a similar thing happen here in the UK. And I think a smarter move would be actually have a minister that is actually, as part of the NHS, dedicated to the health of the nation.
But don't you think
a smarter move?
But don't you think everyone will probably pretty much have a smartwatch? I know that lots more people now are swapping their iPhones and things for a smartwatch. A lot of people go on these gym things, they've all got the smart thing. Listen, it's your own health. Take some responsibility. Buy something to monitor your own health. Why does big state have to come and say, oh, we're going to give you this thing to help you monitor this because we're cheaper for us? How about you take some responsibility for yourself?
I think Apple are properly behind it, sponsoring it.
Yeah, there's something there as well.
Because they're actually going to be flogging a whole load of stuff.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether Apple or anyone...
Follow the money trail, follow the money trail always.
Follow the money, absolutely.
But Wes Streeting may genuinely be trying to do a good job.
Does he look healthy to you, Wes Streeting?
No, I think he had cancer, actually, at some point.
He had cancer? No, I don't mean that. I meant his weight.
Yeah, I think he now is at a healthier weight.
Yeah, but
I don't think that's a healthy weight. If you look at people from the 1970s and 80s, they did not look like that. They were much slimmer. Jeff, you're with me on this, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think...
But what's...
I don't want people who are not healthy lecturing me about health.
I half agree with you, but I think his role is more to oversee the health service and see if he can kind of come up with solutions, which is great, and I'd like him to do it. I don't care whether he's big or small. What I care about... Sorry, let me just finish this. Sorry. What I care about is what solutions he's coming up with. And to me, having a smartwatch sounds like... I've got a smartphone. It will actually do things like blood pressure and all that. A lot of us can do that on our phones anyway. I don't get what the value is.
I think Jess' point about Apple or whatever behind this is actually an interesting one. Be interested to know what deals you've done with any particular company to do that. Maybe it's an Apple Watch keeps a doctor away. I don't know.
An Apple Watch a day. Very good. He gets a round of applause for that one.
I knew he'd outshine us. I knew it.
Yeah, but as I said, I don't care
what... Not shutting down those chicken shops, those fried chicken shops in the high street. That would help.
Do you think?
It would help.
Well, how about people, again, personal responsibility?
Eating less.
Don't go in the chicken shop.
I don't.
Well, I think...
No, you don't, but what people say, oh, I need a smartwatch to tell me.
I think that's...
It's not a drug.
The smartwatch isn't a leash to stop people from actually going in.
Exactly, so...
Electric shop.
That would be good.
Is that not education?
It's also a cost, because if you buy baked beans, for example, baked beans, a tin of baked beans, you've got quite a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah.
If you buy a tin of baked beans without sugar, it costs more than the one with sugar in it.
Yeah. So I think, again, it's part of control of the food stuff that's actually going into the food system.
It is.
Educating people how to be more careful about what they eat and what the content is of what they eat. And a lot of these actually pre-packed foods are containing a lot of things that are actually detrimental to health.
Yeah, if you look at the ingredients or something...
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's got a list of ingredients that long, then you don't want to touch it with a bath.
You know, I'd like to think people look at their smartwatch and are going to act on it. The chances are they'll look at it and then do nothing.
Exactly.
Still go down the pub and have 8 pints.
Electric shock one, then they'll look.
I do like my electric shock watch, that's better. You go in as soon as you cross the threshold for the chicken shop. Wes, add that to the plan. Honestly, what do you think? gbnews.com/you'll say. You're with GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we will continue with the Great British Debates this hour. And I'm asking, should primary school children be lectured on slavery and colonialism? All of this comes as a group of trainee teachers plan to give lessons to children as young as 5 on colonialism and slavery. Right, let's get your latest news with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you. The top stories this hour, as you've been hearing, the Health Secretary will promise to turn the NHS into a neighbourhood health service as he launches a major consultation about the institution's next decade. Wes Streeting is set to invite patients and NHS staff to take part in a national conversation to help shape the government's 10-year plan for the service next week. Millions of people are set to receive health monitoring smartwatches as part of Labour's plan to save the NHS. Announcing the consultation today, Mr Streeting said, if we want to save the things we love about the NHS, then we have to change it. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister says the whole country is behind Sir Chris Hoy following his terminal cancer diagnosis. Sir Keir Starmer posted on X, saying such sad news. Chris is a British sporting legend, and to face his diagnosis with such positivity is inspiring. The 48-year-old has 2 to 4 years left to live. Sir Chris told the Sunday Times he's known for a year that his cancer is terminal. While undergoing treatment in February, Sir Chris said he felt forced to reveal his cancer diagnosis publicly. He's the 3rd most decorated British Olympian of all time, with 6 career golds and 1 silver medal. Fans in the UK and around the world are holding vigils this weekend in memory of Liam Payne, the One Direction star who died on Wednesday. A memorial event is taking place in London's Hyde Park this afternoon, with fans encouraged to bring letters, drawings and flowers. A minute's silence has been held at the Peter Pan statue. Liam's father visited the Casur Hotel in Argentina yesterday, where his son died, while his bandmate Zayn Malik announced he'll reschedule his US tour after the heartbreaking death. Finally, for now, King Charles and Queen Camilla joined a church congregation in Sydney for a Sunday service earlier today on the first day of engagements on their tour of Australia. It's the King's first visit to Australia since he became monarch in September 2 years ago. And it's also the biggest trip the monarch has made since starting his cancer treatment in February. Their 6-day visit to the Commonwealth country will involve celebrating the nation's people, culture and heritage. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got Storm Ashley crossing the UK today, bringing some very strong winds, especially towards the northwest, with the rain gradually clearing towards the south. This is that area of low pressure named Storm Ashley. You can see a real squeeze in those isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds. We've got an amber warning in force, gusts of up to 70, possibly even 80 miles per hour, with outbreaks of showery rain through this evening and overnight. Drier towards the south, across Wales and southern parts of England, with lighter winds here as well. Otherwise staying rather mild tonight, generally lows 10 or 11 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is still going to be windy, especially across Scotland and towards Orkney and Shetland. Again, gusts 50 to 60, possibly even 70 miles per hour. There will be some brightness to start the day across eastern areas, though, through Monday morning, but showers already moving through across parts of western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, it is going to be largely cloudy, especially the far southeast you go, perhaps even with some outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning across the Channel Islands. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, blustery showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, largely dry, some hazy sunshine, cloudier towards the far southeast, where we may just see some heavy spells of rain. But there will be lighter winds out there compared to Sunday. Temperatures a little bit cooler at around 15 or 16 degrees. So through Monday evening, showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. turning towards the south, though, largely dry with clear skies as we go into Tuesday. But Tuesday leaves sunny spells, scattered showers, a little bit drier on Wednesday before turning a bit unsettled later in the week.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 37 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should primary school children be lectured on slavery and colonialism? All of this was revealed that trainee teachers plan to give lessons on exactly that to children as young as 5. They also believe that Christianity should not be the priority in religious education lessons as part of their support for teaching, which challenges the long-standing dominance of Eurocentric and colonialist perspectives. Who wrote that? So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should primary school children be lectured on slavery and colonialism? Right, let's see what my panel make of that. Joining me, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks and dating coach Kezia Noble. Right, I'm going to start with you. Should they?
Should primary school children be lectured? No. It's important that I think secondary school children ought to understand the history of this country, and that will include understanding the role of slavery, but as part of an overall whole, not on its own.
OK, right. Kezia?
They shouldn't be lectured, they should be taught about it. It's something that was terrible that happened. It's not their fault, little white children, they're not responsible for this. This is something that possibly their great-great-grandparents did. But of course it should be taught. It's something that's important.
Why?
Because it happened.
OK, so let me
But I believe you should learn about the French Revolution also.
OK,
I think you should learn about
let me tell you what
history.
happens when that happens, because I'm in a class, and this is how I was very young, in a class, somebody started talking about the slave trade, right? As soon as I leave the class as the only black people in the class, now everyone thinks that I've been enslaved. And the way they look at me changes, yeah? I think this is put together by a load of white people who have come up with this thing because, oh, you've got to tell people about how awful we were. The repercussions of that, then suddenly that black child has looked on differently. These kids don't know anything about it. Why are we re-indoctrinating that?
OK, so you could use the same example when you teach about the Holocaust, that the one Jewish child in that class, everyone's going to be staring at him or her.
Exactly.
I would like to think that you come from a different era, as I do. I think things are changing a lot more now.
You're only 10 years younger than me.
Well, OK, but we remember a different time, OK? And I think that now children are far less racist than they were.
I don't think so.
I know so.
I have a black child, I know.
OK.
I know, I've seen it.
OK. But would you say it's less? If it's still there,
it's still there.
It's less?
I would say it's still there, and actually in more sort of, what's the word, covert manners, so the kids are actually more unkind.
Of course there's racism, but going back to my point about teaching the Holocaust, OK, do we say, no, we're not going to teach you about the Holocaust because that one Jewish child's going to feel very alienated, everyone's going to laugh at them and make gas chamber jokes? This is something that happened. I don't think they should be lectured, but I think it's like anything in history. What are we going to do? Just say that slavery didn't happen?
No, it depends on the balance and how you're putting it forward. And unfortunately, what you have, in particular when it comes to black and white issues, are that you have usually, because this is mainly white country, that's fine, I love it, but you usually have sympathetic white, usually teachers who are quite woke, giving this narrative and almost creating a narrative that black people are oppressed. And that continues throughout. And I think we need to be careful, especially at 5 years old. I don't think you teach...
No, we don't know 5 years old.
Let's go to Jeff Banks.
I actually think it's incredibly divisive. And I think there is an appropriateness of time when education kicks in. I think, as Norman said, there will come a point later on in life for children, maybe when they're 15, 16, when they are able to assimilate knowledge, be able to categorise it for themselves, be able to have a debate amongst their peers as to what was right, wrong and indifferent. I think at the age of 5, 6 and 7, to start teaching them about slavery and probably the bias that will come in the teaching of it. I think sex education at 5, 6 and 7, I think, is inappropriate as well. And I think what we are likely to have is, as Nana said, a much more divisive repercussion of actually doing it. And instead of children of 5, 6 and 7 accepting one another as friends, as classmates, going to their classmates' birthday parties, actually embracing one another and not looking apart as they're different from one another.
That's right.
They're part of the same community.
Can I just say one thing?
Very briefly, then I've got
so,
to...
Sorry.
Were they teaching this in the 70s and the 60s and the 80s? But there was racism then.
There was racism then, but
it doesn't... I think racism will always be there. I don't think you can get rid of it,
That's not the point. They weren't... In my class at school, no, they weren't teaching this. So they weren't teaching
So there was still racism?
No, hold on. There was racism because when I was there, I was literally the only black child in the school.
Which has changed now.
Well, which has changed now, but that doesn't mean that there's less or more racism. When I was the only...
make it work.
When I was the only black child in the school, everyone actually treated me really well until the conversations of slavery came in, and then suddenly it became, we can... See, that's what I'm saying. It was too young. At that age, it's too young. They're not able to...
The age thing is
5 is too young.
Do you know the other thing?
You're right.
And I also think
11, they're much more... They can understand context better.
And I also think the way they teach it as well. So I was taught, black people are slaves, they were taken by the white... And it's not true.
Do you know the
other
thing?
In Africa, people sold the people...
They need to teach
tell the story
also,
properly.
But they need to teach
tell the story properly.
Can I also say that it was the British Navy that actually stopped slavery?
We know this.
16,000.
I think we're all agreeing that it's inappropriate for 5-year-olds to be introduced to this. We'll all agree that you shouldn't be lectured either. But, I mean, I hope we're all agreeing also that we should not be hiding our history. Our history has to be taught in context. Not an isolated issue about slavery, but slavery in part of what we did, where we traded with, where we know what our role in the world was. You put it in the context, that's perfectly proper to talk about it.
That's probably why it's better to do it for older children that can grasp the context. I agree with you on that.
So it should be in context, and I think the way they tell that story, I think, is totally wrong. It's not even true. Black people were dragged for... No. Thousands of slave owners in Africa sold their own people, and then those people, some of them were left in say, Jamaica and all those other countries, and then en route to England.
And they sold them to Arabs, which no one talks about, and it's still going on, by the way. No one's talking about that.
Before the slavery, there was slavery in this country, then there was slavery in Africa, and there's still slavery now. And this is probably... This phone, this laptop, everything, slaves probably make a lot.
There's slavery now. There's probably more slaves in the world now than there were in this day we're talking about here 200 years ago. Not least because of population, as point Jeff was making off air.
Yeah, I made the point that the population of the planet now is 7.5 billion.
Yes.
When supposedly the slave trading was going on, it was probably less than 2 billion.
Yeah, but there's a major problem.
Everything is context.
There's a major problem with modern slavery, with people being trafficked for sexual purposes to run capitalist factories and everything else, happening in this country now. And Theresa May, as Prime Minister, was actually very good on this. The difficulty now is that people who alleged they're being trafficked are now being treated differently.
Listen, to be honest, I'd like people to be taught about modern-day slavery. I'd like people to learn about where their clothes come from, where their phones come from, where their laptops come from, about the way your wonderful green energy things and how you're getting your cobalt and all the other minerals in your so-called green vehicles. I want them to be teaching that. They're not. They want to talk about something 200 years ago to make everyone feel guilty. But this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, their opportunity to be on the show to tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. Let's go to Shropshire. There's Adrian Gell. Adrian Gell, what do you think?
Hi, Nana. Hi. Well, I mean, this whole thing is political indoctrination at its worst. And what I would say is that any teacher that stands there and says this is what we ought to be teaching children at the age of 5, I think you need to question their ability to be teachers in the first place. I think what's important to remember is that at that age, children are so vulnerable that they're unable to make their own decisions, and they need to be given the facts. Now, when I was a nipper, Yeah, we were taught at an early stage. We were taught about the kings and queens of England, which at that time split our history into various different ages. And within that, we were then given dates for which we could hang our hook on. It wasn't until I was in my early teens that I started to be taught that the necessity that to look at history and learn about history and to formulate my opinion from that. But, you know, you talk to children now, even at the age of 8 or 10, if you say 1066, they'll be pushed to come up with the Battle of Hastings. They wouldn't know when the Battle of 1805, Battle of Trafalgar, 1815.
Well, listen, Adrian, we're running out of time.
And actually goes to going to slavery. Yeah, we got rid of slavery in 1807, two years after the Battle of Trafalgar.
Well, Adrian Gell, historian Adrian Gell. Yeah. Thank you so much. Really good to talk to you. That's my great British voice, is Adrian Gell. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, I'll be asking, has law and order broken down in the UK? Former Metropolitan Police Officer Norman Brennan joins me next. Stay tuned.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're talking catchphrases and jingles because, of course, instantly recognisable and sometimes a little annoying in the case of the Go Compare one, perhaps. An iconic advertising jingle can stay in your head all day and sometimes stand the test of time. Sound expert and music designer for some of the world's most renowned companies, Michael Boumendil, joins us now. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
First of all, what is the secret ingredient, the secret recipe for a hit jingle that stands the test of time over the decades?
Well, I have to say that secret 100 years ago is not the secret today, because today all the brands are using music. So the first secret is to stand out, is to make something different, to do something interesting. The other thing I believe is to do something that is true to the brand that is talking to you. You know, it's not only about the memorability, but it's about telling something about the brand. You know, when I hear you, your voice, your tone of voice says not only who you are, I can recognize your voice, but it says a lot about your mood, your personality. So the other reason why we make successful jingles is because they're catchy, because they're different, but also because they say something to us that is interesting, and finally keeping this link between the brand and the customers.
Michael, tell us about your involvement in the new Maybelline jingle. This makes me, I mean, I haven't heard it, but it makes me a little bit sad because I was an avid Maybelline concealer user for many years. Other brands are available, but the jingle was the main reason why I got bought into it.
You don't have to be sad, because we kept most of the legacy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? We've been lively today. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Now, listen, a top police chief says that the criminal justice system needs a whole reform to deal with the soaring numbers of shoplifters like those who took part in the summer riots. Chief Constable of Norfolk Police Paul Sanford says that the toleration of shoplifting leads to more serious crimes. He said that we do need more whole system reform, and what we saw in the disorder in the summer when the sanction is swift, decisive and relevant, it cuts out criminality. Well, let's speak to former Metropolitan Police Officer Norman Brennan. He joins me now. Norman, welcome. Norman, what do you think about this shoplifting? It seems to be an acceptable crime.
Unfortunately, that's what's happened, and pretty much like Rolex watch thefts, mobile phone thefts, robberies, knife crime, you name it, it's out of control. There isn't one single crime that we're dealing with at the moment, and shoplifting is a huge burden, not just on the retail industry, but also on us. It costs over £2 billion a year in loss, which is equivalent to each of us paying £100 each. And not only that, although there's 450,000 reported, the highest on record, I believe the true figure could be 6-7 times higher than that. And the retail industry are at their wits' end. 1,300 of them are assaulted, abused, or insulted every single day of the week. That's how bad it is.
But should they be treated, though, the way Keir Starmer treated the rioters? Because that had a good effect. It worked, actually. And people are saying, that why don't they actually get tougher on them and do what Keir did?
Well, I agree with Paul Sanford, but that there again, there can't be a chief constable or a police officer in Britain that probably would disagree with him. But the thing is, Nana, this week, the government are releasing thousands more prisoners. So what message does that send out? What I believe should happen is this, is every single shop in Britain that can afford it, I'm talking about the big retail industries, they should have specially trained security staff. They're sent on a 2-week course where people like myself or serving officers tell them about the law, conflict resolution. They're taught in self-defence, and also they're issued and licensed to carry quick cuffs. They probably need to be paid £40,000 a year. And what will happen is a message is sent out throughout Britain that if you shoplift, unless there's substantially good grounds that you've got mental health issues or something like that, you will be arrested and the police will attend every single call. Every single one of you will be charged and put before the courts, pretty much like the smoking ban. Once the message is out there, everybody whinges and whines, first of all, and says nothing will happen. You start doing what we did in the riots, the message will soon be clear. But when you're releasing thousands of prisoners, and not only that, telling people that they're only going to serve 40% of their sentence, and most people that are sent to prison in the first place have committed such a serious crime or such persistent crime that the right people are in prison. And when they see there's no deterrent, just the other day in Waitrose across the road from me here, I went across there was 2 women that stole £200 worth of expensive lamb and also fillet steak. They told me that they're regulars. The police don't turn up.
Well,
and not only
Norman,
that,
we're running out of time. Really good to talk to you, Norman Brennan. Thank you so much for your thoughts. That's Norman Brennan. Right, still to come in the interview, I'll be joined by acting icon Jess, Conrad, who appeared in his first film back in 1955. Don't go anywhere.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got Storm Ashley crossing the UK today, bringing some very strong winds, especially towards the northwest, with the rain gradually clearing towards the south. This is that area of low pressure named Storm Ashley. You can see a real squeeze in those isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds. We've got an amber warning in force, gusts of up to 70, possibly even 80 miles per hour, with outbreaks of showery rain through this evening and overnight. Drier towards the south, across Wales and southern parts of England, with lighter winds here as well. Otherwise staying rather mild tonight, generally lows 10 or 11 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is still going to be windy, especially across Scotland and towards Orkney and Shetland. Again, gusts 50 to 60, possibly even 70 miles per hour. There will be some brightness to start the day across eastern areas, though, through Monday morning, but showers already moving through across parts of western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, it is going to be largely cloudy, especially the far southeast you go, perhaps even with some outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning across the Channel Islands. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, blustery showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, largely dry, some hazy sunshine, cloudier towards the far southeast, where we may just see some heavy spells of rain. But there will be lighter winds out there compared to Sunday. Temperatures a little bit cooler at around 15 or 16 degrees. So through Monday evening, showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards the south, though, largely dry with clear skies as we go into Tuesday. But Tuesday leaves sunny spells, scattered showers, a little bit drier on Wednesday before turning a bit unsettled later in the week.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, hello, welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, it's 5 o'clock. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Joining me today is former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks, and also dating coach Kezia Noble. Coming up, we'll be crossing live to Hyde Park, where heartbroken fans of Liam Payne have gathered to pay their respects to the late One Direction hero. Then, as Wes Streeting reveals his 10-year plan to revolutionise our health service, I'm asking, will Labour save the NHS? That plans include rolling out smart watches for people to monitor their own health from the comfort of their own homes. Well, I've got a poll up right now on X throughout the show asking you that question, will Labour save the NHS? Cast your vote now. Then, the legendary actor and singer Jess Conrad joins me in the studio for the interview. He'll be telling us the tales of his life as his autobiography From Blitz to Glitz is published. You won't want to miss that. And in clickbait, take a look at this video. But what goes next?
Do currently have a California driver's license, you just don't have a physical copy on you at the moment. That's my preferred method of identification. And this is, it's a cat collar. I'm currently identifying as a cat.
What happens next? But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you, and good afternoon to you. It's just gone 5 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Health Secretary will promise to turn the NHS into a neighbourhood health service as he launches a major consultation about the institution's next decade. Wes Streeting is set to invite patients and NHS staff to take part in a national conversation to shape the government's 10-year plan for the health service next week. Millions of people are set to receive health monitoring smartwatches as part of Labour's plan to save the NHS. The party pledged to build an NHS fit for the future. Announcing the consultation today, Mr Streeting said, if we want to save the things we love about the NHS, then we have to change it. He spoke to our political editor, Christopher Hope, earlier on.
There will be a big focus in the budget around the investment in things like capital and tech so that we can make the system more efficient. But even where we're doing things like the 40,000 more appointments every week, that will also be achieved through reformed ways of working so we get more bang for the buck because, you know, people are feeling the pinch in their pockets at the moment.
Elsewhere in politics, those cheating the benefits system could have their bank accounts raided by the Department for Work and Pensions. Private companies like airlines will also be forced to hand over information under new plans being drawn up by ministers, that's according to the Sunday Telegraph. The crackdown is set to be launched as part of Rachel Reeves's first budget, with the total savings set to be £1.6 billion over the course of the Parliament. Some have criticised the announcement for being too intrusive, but the Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall, says it's absurd that the current measures have become so outdated. Official figures show the total cost of fraud to the economy last year was a record £7.3 billion. Fans in the UK and around the world are holding vigils this weekend in memory of Liam Payne, the One Direction star who died on Wednesday. A memorial event has taken place in London's Hyde Park this afternoon, with fans encouraged to bring letters, drawings and flowers. A minute's silence was also held at the Peter Pan statue. Liam's father visited the Casur Hotel in Argentina yesterday, where his son died, while his bandmate Zayn Malik announced he'll reschedule his US tour after the heartbreaking death. The Prime Minister says the whole country is behind Sir Chris Hoy following his terminal cancer diagnosis. Sir Keir Starmer posted on X saying such sad news. Chris is a British sporting legend and to face his diagnosis with such positivity is inspiring. The 48-year-old has 2 to 4 years left to live. Sir Chris told the Sunday Times he's known for a year that his cancer is terminal. While undergoing treatment in February, Sir Chris said he felt forced to reveal his cancer diagnosis publicly. He's the third most decorated British Olympian of all time, with 6 career golds and 1 silver medal. King Charles and Queen Camilla joined a church congregation in Sydney for a Sunday service on the first day of engagements during their tour of Australia. It's the King's first visit to Australia since he became monarch in September 2 years ago. And it's also the biggest trip the monarch has made since starting cancer treatment in February. Their 6-day visit to the Commonwealth country will involve celebrating the nation's people, culture and heritage. Following anti-monarchy protests in the country leading up to the visit, the former Australian High Commissioner to the UK, George Brandis, told GB News this earlier on.
I don't remember a time since these polls first began to be taken in the late 1970s, when support for a republic was as low as 33%. Usually it sits somewhere in the mid-40s. And I think that reflects the fact that the issue, Australians are sick of this issue. We've heard too much about it for so long, and we've really moved on. It's very much, I think, yesterday's issue.
And finally, for now, parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland are dealing with dangerous weather conditions this afternoon due to Storm Ashley's arrival. Parts of the country are under an amber weather warning for strong winds, with the Met Office warning of power cuts and damage to buildings. Danger to life is also likely from large waves hitting coastal roads in the country. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon. It's 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Still to come, can Labour save the NHS? A GP joins me soon. I'm also asking, should we scrap the Climate Change Act? The Tory leader candidate Robert Jenrick has promised to do this. I'll be joined by meteorologist Jim Dale and climate scientist Paul Burgess. That's going to be a fiery one. You don't want to miss that. Then, in the interview, joining me in the studio is acting and singing legend Jess Conrad. He'll be telling us about his career. There have been also memorials all across the country for One Direction singer Payne, who died aged 31. Our reporter has been at one of those. Stay tuned for Supplement Sunday when we go through some of these week's top stories. And, of course, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Right, so we've talked about Wes Streeting and smartwatches and blood pressure and all of that. Joining me now, GP and Chief Executive of Doncaster Local Medical Council, Dean Eggett. Dean, really good to talk to you. So Wes Streeting is planning smartwatches as part of his initiative. What are your thoughts on that?
When I heard in the news that Wes is going for the smartwatches option as his big 10-year plan, I suppose I wasn't too surprised. We've had 10 years now of concentrating on digital, and we know that digital is probably going to be a solution for the NHS. But smartwatches, to me, seems like smoke and mirrors. It's distracting people from the real problems that we have. It's quite fancy. It's a lot of cash. It sounds great, but it's not going to solve our problems.
Well, OK, so you're in agreement then? You don't think that this is is it a good plan? I mean, I had a message from someone that says that they use their smartwatch and then they use their blood pressure monitor and it gave a totally different reading, one of ludicrousness. And actually, when they move their arms, it does account for the walking and steps. And I mean, they're not 100% accurate. I mean, Wes is talking about it as if it's going to give you the answer to many of the issues, but it's not really, is it?
No, I'm a big believer in a digital revolution in the NHS. And there's so many ways that we could use digital technology to help patients collecting data, trying to understand diseases, how diseases spread. But giving people smartwatches to monitor their health smacks to me that somebody has got Wes in a room and said, here's a great plan, let's spend some cash on this. Because let's be honest, it takes 2 fingers and a wrist to feel your pulse. If we were teaching this to young people in schools, it would be a lifelong skill that would probably save lives. It doesn't necessitate spending money on watches so that people can understand how to check a pulse and check a blood pressure. It's actually technology we need from that perspective, and let's spend the cash elsewhere. Digitally, yes, absolutely, but we need rooms, we need beds, and we need people.
Well, you know, the thing is, though, and this is an issue with these things as well. I mean, my phone, it does a thing and it tells me, you know, I've got a fitness ring that I've got to complete. I will have just done a hot yoga session for over an hour and a half, and because obviously I can't take the phone in, it then comes up with, oh, you need to move a little bit more and do a bit more. It's not realistic. What do you think that perhaps the health ministers should be really looking at? Because I know Wes is talking about a 10-year time frame, but, I mean, 10 years, why should we wait 10 years? You should be getting on with things that will have an effect now.
I do agree with the 10-year time frame. The NHS has long since had any form of stability. So to know where we're heading in 10 years' time is going to be really useful for people to plan and say, OK, this is what's going to happen. Let's start working towards that. some quick wins that Wes can do here and now, and he needs to be working on. But I also agree with the concept of a conversation with the public to say, okay, what do we want the NHS to look like in 10 years' time? But let's backtrack for a brief moment. You know, Labour has not been in government now for 14 years, and they're back. So they've had 14 years to have a conversation with the public. They've had 14 years to listen to people and talk back to people. So plans shouldn't now be about listening and talking. It should be about saying, we've had these chats. This is what the next 10 years is going to look like, because this is what you told us. Actually, the concept of a conversation is typical management painting by numbers. It's the concept of getting people to buy into what you're about to deliver. But if what he's about to deliver is smartwatches, I'm not buying into that.
Well, listen, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. I'm not buying into it either. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Thank you so much. Really good to talk to you on that, right? That's Dean Eggett. Now, Robert Jenrick, aspiring Conservative Party leader and potential Prime Minister, plans to repeal the Climate Change Act and other Blair-era legislations like Equality and the Human Rights Act. But is he right? Well, joining me now, meteorologist Jim Dale. Jim Dale, you're on your own for now, although Paul Burgess has just messaged me and said he's in the waiting room, so I don't know what that means, but I think he's waiting for something. Right, so he'll be with us shortly. Jim Dale, so I've only got you, so...
well, good afternoon, Nana.
Well, I mean, good afternoon to you. I know you've got a lot of weather, so you're going to be very excited about what's coming down the pipe at the moment. But talk to me, is he right, Robert Jenrick, to be repealing the Climate Change Act should he get into power?
No, he's following the tail of Reform UK, to be honest with you, going in the wrong direction completely. Look over your shoulder. Look what happened. I know this won't necessarily create news in the UK, but look, there's been massive floods in France and Italy this week. And when I say massive, really streets, cars going down streets, floating down streets. And we've seen many, many videos of this over the course of the last year. And Vancouver in the last 24 hours seeing its heaviest rainfall for 50 years. This is repeating itself left, right and centre. And it's not floods, it's something else. It's wildfires, it's drought. It's all of these things stacked together. So this is the worst time to actually be trying to roll backwards. So I'm not quite sure what Jenrick is trying to appeal to.
Well, I don't know how pylons will cope with floods and solar panels. I don't think they're going to fare well. But let's bring in Paul Burgess, because Paul Burgess also joined us now. Paul Burgess, you heard what he's saying. There's floods, wildfires, everything else like that. And so this is the worst time in Jim's eyes that we should be repealing any sort of climate-style legislation.
Yeah, well, Jim has no understanding about climate or extreme weather. I mean, he even disagrees with the IPCC.
Sorry, let him finish.
Can I speak without you interrupting, Jim?
Sorry, carry on, Paul.
Has no idea. I've already presented the IPCC data to him. No indication of man in floods, of any type of flood, no indication of man in forest fires, no indication of man in tropical storms, etc. Now, that's the scientists. I know the politicians do something different. Can I just show a graph to get a simple message over, which I gave you?
All right, very quickly, because people can't really see these things clearly. But what's the point of the graph?
No, it's on. You've got it. You've got the graph.
Can we show the graph, please? And tell us where it's from as well, because we need to know.
Yeah, fine, it's on there.
All right, you'll talk me through the graph. The graph will come up, but we haven't got lots of time, so...
OK, world in data. There's the graph. There's the CO2 production, since 1850 for China. And at the bottom of it, you can't see it because the heading's over it. But the bottom of it there is the UK. Right? What we've done is just export our CO2. Now, anything we're doing has no effect whatsoever on the world or the climate, even if the alarmists were right. So even if Jim was right, it has no effect. And that's only one country, China. Look at India. Indonesia has just packed it in and said, we're not doing it anymore, this climate nonsense. And that is the main message I want to get across.
All right, Jim.
Makes no difference.
Look at it, Jim.
Yeah, look. To not adhere to what we're doing, and by the way, 98% of MPs are in favour of net zero, so this isn't going to be repealed in any shape or form. The only let me speak, Paul. You just had your go. To go in the negative direction as far as climate is concerned, you've got to be the maddest man in the madhouse. To be frank with you, and that's what Paul is. So
hold on.
I know my weather. I know
no
my
insults,
climate.
Please. I won't do insults. He's not mad. He's just as mad as you. The same. You're both as mad as each other.
Well, why aren't you having a go at China, Jim?
You're OK. The China thing. Look, we've all got to do our little bit. China may well be doing overburning the CO2, etc. But that doesn't mean just pack it in, because we've got only control of ourselves, and if we don't do our little bit, then somebody else won't do theirs.
Okay,
and
Jim,
most 165 countries have signed up to net zero, so this is going to happen whether you want it or not.
You say that, but some countries might start pulling out. Okay, Jim, how old is the planet?
It's around about 5 billion years old.
So let me get this straight. You think that in the short time that we've been here, we can work out the entire... I mean, do we know how many universes there are, solar systems and so on and so forth? We don't know anything, do we?
I think you're throwing a lot of red herrings in there, Nana.
Why?
What we're interested in is since the Industrial Revolution, since CO2, methane, and other gases, which essentially is the greenhouse gas. We all did this at school. We know what's going on. And as I say, look over your shoulder, see what's going on around the world, and you'll soon understand. And by the way, take this one, because what's going on around the world and what happened here in spring with the floods is going to happen again. So whether it be major storms, floods or fires, it will happen.
Paul Burgess.
In the rock.
Paul Burgess.
Well, my job, I was a water resource engineer. I was an chartered environmental engineer. I know what I'm talking about with floods. Total, absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Just alarmism. You base everything on headlines, Jim, not on the science. I base it on the science. And even the IPCC agree with me, not you. But when I present you with that data in the past, you don't even look at it before you deny it. That's your world.
Well, I know what the IPCC stand for, and they don't stand for what you stand for. And the scientists there back exactly what I'm saying. Any meteorologist, any climatologist, you know, you're in the absolute tiny minority, and you'll stay there as well. This country will go ahead because it has the MPs to be able to do it. 98% are in favour, tiny little bit against, which Paul is part of.
Table 12, IPCC report, AR6. The scientists say one thing, the politicians, what you're talking about, 98% of politicians.
No,
the next time we need the science lessons, I'll ask the MPs.
Yeah, well, let me be honest with you, Jim. Just to come to what you said, 98% of MPs and all that, they're not scientists, so I'm afraid I don't really have too much trust in a lot. Sorry, let me finish. I don't really have much trust in a lot of the things they say, so that wouldn't be any sort of verification of it, the thing being right.
But the difference here is, Nana, is that they have the vote. This is the point. You asked whether or not we should walk away from climate mitigation. It's not going to happen because they've got the vote, because we just had a general election, and now we've got 98% of MPs who want net zero to happen, who are following that path. And by the way, it's law, so it will happen. So as much as you shout and scream, Paul, it's going to happen.
No, but listen, it might not. Final word to Paul Burgess.
Countries are dropping it all around the world. We've got the excuse now. We're building gas power stations, providing they can be converted to hydrogen later on. This is all an excuse to cover our backsides, as it were. This is absolute abject nonsense, and countries like Indonesia, just this week, dropped it completely. They've got to, because it makes no difference. What Jim's advocating makes no difference. That graph says it all. China's put more in a very short time of CO2 into the atmosphere than we have in the whole time.
They're also leading on solar power as well, Paul.
Well, they might do. They might well be leading on...
Oh, is it? No, they're not.
Oh, yes, they are.
All right, well, listen,
they are.
This is not pantomime.
Look at the graph, Jim.
This is not a pantomime.
Right.
Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, yes, it is. Thank you so much, Jim Dale and Paul Burgess. Always a pleasure. Right, so what do you think? Should Robert Jenner drop the whole carbon thing? I think he should. I think he's absolutely right with that. That is probably, in my view, a winner. But next, I'll be joined by the star of the 60s, Jess, Conrad. I'll be talking through his acting and singing career. We'll be back soon.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
My kingdom for a voice. Scientists have, I can't believe this story, scientists have incredibly recreated the voice of Richard III using both his skull shape and a knowledge of medieval speech patterns. Me neither. The result is that the king, who was famously killed at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, would have spoken in English close to that of a man from modern-day Yorkshire, or Somerset. Let's take a listen.
The sun shines with no less light and splendour, nor does it suffer any diminution of its strength.
Let's discuss this further with Yvonne Morley-Chisholm, the voice coach behind the project, who spent 10 years researching how the monarch would have sounded. Yvonne, you can probably see from my face, I have no idea how this works. Can you enlighten me as to what all this is about?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Dawn. So yes, I had a mad idea 10 years ago. I normally work with actors where we have a recording of a historical person, and we do something called vocal profiling to train the actor who's going to be performing on stage or screen to move their tongue tip, their jaw, their lips, everything, and get behind the personality of who they're playing. We obviously have quite a lot of that missing from Richard. We don't have a recording of him, but I wondered how far we could go. And a key player in this has been and is Professor Caroline Wilkinson, who over a decade ago created his face, first of all, from his skull. Now, on the day we, as Shakespeare would say, shuffle off our mortal coil, every little dent and dimple in the bones says how fit and strong the muscles were. So I thought, OK, we know what his face could do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 22 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. And it's time for the interview. And today, I am joined by the legendary Jess, Conrad, a British pop icon from the 60s, turned actor and stage star, from topping the charts with hits like Cherry Pie to performing musicals like Godspell and Joseph. Jess has done it all. He continues to dazzle audiences in cabarets, cruise ships and beyond, and keeping his love for the stage alive after 6 decades in showbiz. Well, let's welcome the incredible Jess Conrad, OBE.
Oh, thank you so much. That interview was so wonderful. I wondered who you were talking about.
It's you.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yes, I have been around a long time, and it's been a wonderful journey, you know, and I finally wrote a book, which is called Blitz from Glitz. And some people say, what's the Blitz, you know, because I lived through it with the German planes coming over, dropping bombs. And I was young then, and I used to go out just to watch the planes coming over and dropping the bombs, because it was kind of fun in a way. And then, of course, the houses were being blown up close to where I lived. And then you had a shelter built in the garden. And that garden, the shelter in the garden got very damp, you know. Anyway, cut a long story short, we finished up going to the nearest tube station where everybody went. And you go to the tube station and everybody was there. And you couldn't sleep because all of a sudden somebody started to sing and then everybody sang. Oh. So, you know, it wasn't much good going there for sleep. So we went back home and slept under the table. But when you're young, those days seem exciting as opposed to frightening, you know. I was so used to it, the war years. And, of course, my father was away like most fathers were. So when he finally came back, it was a bit like, who is this fella? You know, because by then I was very close to my mum, like most Cockney boys are, you know. And this guy comes in who's been in Iceland for years, you know. He's in the military police, you know. So it was a bit of a shock to have this new man in my life, you know. But we still got used to one another, and it's all in the book.
It's all in the book.
All in the book, from Blitz to Glitz. You know, ordinary boy from Brixton making good. You know, I became a sex symbol and all of that stuff. It was absolutely wonderful in the 60s.
Talk to me about your first big gig then. What was your first thing that you did, the first big gig that you did where suddenly
I did Player of the Week. Player of the Week. And the Player of the Week was so important because there were only 2 channels. So it was the Player of the Week and something else. And the Player of the Week, I played a pop star. And it was such a success, they thought I was a pop star. So Jack Good, who was the Simon Cowell of that era, I went to see him, and he said, "Can you sing?" I said, no. I thought I'd compare one of the shows. And he said, "No, we'll sing." So I sang a song. He said, "You're right." He said, "You can't sing, but you have teenage appeal and sex appeal. I'll make you a star by next weekend." So he put me on major television, sing a duet with Billy Fury, who became a very dear friend of mine. And it was a big success. And all of a sudden, you know, I'd always been very popular at school, you know, being nice looking and everything. But being a pop star was a different thing altogether. I mean, Billy Fury was in the room next door, and I said to Billy, when I got back after my first television, I said, "Billy, I've just got in my room." And I said, "There's girls under the bed." Chicks, we called them then. I said, "There's chicks under the bed, man, and the wardrobe's full of chicks." He said, "Yeah, man, chicks, yeah. Well, you'd have plenty of chicks, man. Yeah, plenty of chicks, man." And that's how what it was like, being a pop star. They queued up, you know, and they'd come. So I said to my road manager, "Send them in one at a time," you know, because everyone wanted a kiss. And... you know, some of them were quite long kisses. So we had them in, didn't all come in all the same time, you know. And you get to a situation where you're quite exhausted, you know. I'm kissing girls, you know. Although there's nothing wrong with that. And I loved it even more then than I do now, I suppose. But they were great times. And I've met all those early people. And Matt Munro was a lovely man. And show business then was full of really lovely people. Yeah, there really was, yeah.
Because your career has spanned a long time. I mean, you're still...
A long time.
Still doing things.
I'm still doing
it,
yes.
You're still doing things. You've written a book. What would you say is the biggest highlight, the best thing that you think...
The best highlight ever?
That you...
Well, I mean, my very first thing was very good because it was a Saturday show, Top of the Pops thing. I can't think of the name now. But at 6 o'clock, there were no teenagers in the street. Everybody was watching this show because in those days there was only 2 channels.
Yeah, I remember.
And they were all watching this 60s show. So everybody saw you, you know. So I became like an icon-ish type person. And I've been years in rep learning my trade as an actor. So when I had the opportunity to make films like The Boys, which was on just the other week, and different films like that, I knew what to do. You know, I'd learned... I've been to the Actors Workshop, the famous American Actors Workshop. They had one here, which taught the method acting, which I liked very much because you could be yourself. You didn't have to use that perfect accent, and I didn't have that perfect accent because I was a Cockney boy myself. So it was a wonderful time for me to do good in films. And there was a film for me last week, The Boys was on, which was a wonderful, and the director was a modern director. And we did a first scene, and we ad-libbed a bit, you know, and he said, "You ad-libbed, didn't you?" And we said, "Yes." He said, "Well, you continue to do that." And Robert Morley was in the film, and we were ad-libbing all round him, but he loved it. He didn't mind at all. And we made it at Elstree, and in the breaks, he would take us out for tea. We'd have hot buns and, you know, all lovely things. He was a lovely, lovely man. and The Boys was a great film because it was the first film where the director wanted you to go away from the script as long as you knew the story, you knew who you were, and it worked.
How do you think, in your mind, how fame has changed? Because, of course, we heard of the very tragic death of Liam Payne. He was one of the singers for One Direction. How do you think that fame has changed, in your view? And do you think that young people now have a lot more to deal with than when your heyday?
Well, I think it's easier now.
You think?
But, well, you know, in my day, you had to be in the union. You had to have a card to work. You don't have to have that now. So to get that card, you had to go into rep for 4p a week, you know. So I went into rep Barnsley, Aberystwyth, and finally got my equity card. Then I could work, but it took years to get your equity card. And Maggie Thatcher, I think, came along and scrubbed all that out and said, you don't have to have an equity card, you know, anybody can act, which was not completely true. I mean, you know, there are lots of natural people, natural actors, of course, and it does work. But for you, it's not that. It's a trade, and it's a difficult thing to conquer. But as you say, I went into rep to learn my business. You know, 4p a week and sweeping the stage and getting all the props, and you know. It's been a great life.
No, of course.
I'm now writing my book.
You're writing your book as well.
Ding, ding, ding.
From Blitz.
All about the lovely women I've met.
What about your lovely wife,
and
though?
kissed.
You've been with your wife for many years, haven't you? What about your wife? You've been with your wife for many years.
Oh, my wife for many years. I married Miss Kamei. I was sharing a flat with Michael Caine and the other good-looking boy. I can't think of his name now. And these girls came on the television, you know, these different girls. And because we're in show business, we knew how to get hold of them. And Renee came on, Renee Bergman. She was the girl, the Kamei soap girl. She was in a bath, and I went, Michael Caine said, it's my turn. I said, no, my fucking turn, it's my turn. So I dated her. And,
apologies for the language, no swearing.
No, I'm not swearing.
OK.
I said, no, you know, it's my turn. So I took her out, and it was wonderful, and we've been married ever since. I don't know how many years, but it's been an awful long time, but it's been worth it.
1963, I think, wasn't it? You got married? 1963, I think.
Oh, my God, you've done your homework. You're not just pretty, are you? You're intelligent as well.
So talk to me, this book, then, we've got about a minute left. Talk to me about the book. Where can people get it?
Yeah, well, you know, I finally wrote the book, and it's interesting because, you know, before I was in films, it was good to be a gangster. In the early days, James Cagney made the gangster films. And I was a young boy, and I thought James Cagney was a gangster. And then I saw him in a film where he was dancing, and I said to my mum, I've just seen James Cagney dancing. She said, well, yeah. She didn't want to explain it. You know, these are actors. That's what happened, you know.
Well, we're running out of time, Jess. So your book is called From Blitz to Glitz, I presume.
So Blitz from Glitz is because Blitz, I lived through the Blitz, and they were terrible times, and they were terrible times, but it was so. It was so exciting. I used to go out on the roof and watch the planes come over, you know, and then the planes used to crash.
Oh God, Jeff! No, that's not nice, Jess.
And all their wives used to go and find the funny boys.
All right. Well, listen, Jess, we're running out of time. I've got to go to the news, but I do appreciate you coming in, and thank you so much.
It's lovely to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
I've heard so much about you. You're so famous.
I'm not as famous as you. From Blitz to Glitz, the brilliant Jess Conrad. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you. OBE. Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. We're live. Still to come, thousands across the country have been gathering to remember Liam Payne, our reporter, at one of the commemorations. But first, let's get your latest news with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you. The top stories this hour. The Health Secretary will promise to turn the NHS into a neighbourhood health service as he launches a major consultation about the institution's next decade. Wes Streeting is set to invite patients and NHS staff to take part in a national conversation to shape the government's 10-year plan for the service next week. Millions of people are set to receive health monitoring smartwatches as part of Labour's plan to save the NHS. Announcing the consultation today, Mr Streeting said, if we want to save the things we love about the NHS, then we have to change it. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister says the whole country is behind Sir Chris Hoy following his terminal cancer diagnosis. Sir Keir Starmer posted on X saying, such sad news. Chris is a British sporting legend. To face his diagnosis with such positivity is inspiring. The 48-year-old has 2 to 4 years left to live. Sir Chris told the Sunday Times he's known for a year that his cancer is terminal. While undergoing treatment in February, Sir Chris said he felt forced to reveal his cancer diagnosis publicly. He's the third most decorated British Olympian of all time, with 6 career golds and 1 silver medal. Fans in the UK and around the world are holding vigils this weekend in memory of Liam Payne, the One Direction star who died on Wednesday. A memorial event has taken place in London's Hyde Park this afternoon, with fans encouraged to bring letters, drawings and flowers. A minute's silence was also held at the Peter Pan statue. Liam's father visited the Casur Hotel in Argentina yesterday, where his son died, while his bandmate Zayn Malik announced he'll reschedule his US tour after the heartbreaking death. And finally, for now, parts of the country are dealing with dangerous weather conditions this afternoon due to Storm Ashley's arrival. Parts of Western Scotland and Northern Ireland are under an amber weather warning for strong winds, with the Met Office warning of power cuts and damage to buildings. Danger to life is also reportedly likely from large waves hitting coastal roads. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got Storm Ashley crossing the UK today, bringing some very strong winds, especially towards the northwest, with the rain gradually clearing towards the south. This is that area of low pressure named Storm Ashley. You can see a real squeeze in those isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds. We've got an amber warning in force, gusts of up to 70, possibly even 80 miles per hour, with outbreaks of showery rain through this evening and overnight. Drier towards the south, across Wales and southern parts of England, with lighter winds here as well. Otherwise staying rather mild tonight, generally lows 10 or 11 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is still going to be windy, especially across Scotland and towards Orkney and Shetland. Again, gusts 50 to 60, possibly even 70 miles per hour. There will be some brightness to start the day across eastern areas, though, through Monday morning, but showers already moving through across parts of western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, it is going to be largely cloudy, especially the far southeast you go, perhaps even with some outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning across the Channel Islands. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, blustery showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, largely dry, some hazy sunshine, cloudier towards the far southeast, where we may just see some heavy spells of rain. But there will be lighter winds out there compared to Sunday. Temperatures a little bit cooler at around 15 or 16 degrees. So through Monday evening, showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards the south, though, largely dry with clear skies as we go into Tuesday. But Tuesday leaves sunny spells, scattered showers, a little bit drier on Wednesday before turning a bit unsettled later in the week.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, this is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, welcome. Fast approaching 41 minutes after 5 o'clock. Now, of course, a memorial event is taking place in Hyde Park today to commemorate former One Direction singer Liam Payne, who died after falling off a balcony in Argentina earlier this week. GB News reporter Jack Carson has sent us this report.
Good afternoon to you. We're here in Hyde Park at the Peter Pan statue, where hundreds of One Direction fans have gathered here to pay tribute to Liam Payne, who of course fell from that balcony in Buenos Aires earlier this week. Memorial events have been held all around the country, all around the world over the last few days, and hundreds have gathered here. As you can see, flowers, balloons that have been left as well, special messages of people's own personal memories of maybe meeting Liam, of the impact that One Direction's music, Liam Payne's music, has had on their lives. There's a lot of emotion here as people also write their own personal messages around this statue. Many of the crowd, as you may be able to hear in the background, also breaking into start singing some of One Direction's fans as they start to grieve, who a lot of people have told me that I've spoken to here, it feels like one of their friends, one of their family, such as the connection of his music with them. Growing up and into adulthood, as well as they face the challenges that all of us face in our lives. But let's talk to One Direction fan who's come here today. Chloe, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I mean, what is it like being here? How are you feeling being here at this memorial today?
It feels like very shocking, because I would have thought that I would have to do this in my 70s when I grow up. So to like be younger than him when we have to do this, it feels very, it doesn't feel real in a sense.
I mean, what has One Direction's music, what has Liam Payne's music meant to you?
It's meant so much to me. I was only born in 2009 and they formed in 2010, so they've pretty much been in my whole life since then. And it's like they've saved me when no one else did and stuff, so it means a lot.
I mean, what is it like being here for this memorial? I mean, what have you done in terms of your own tributes that we can see all around us here today?
I made bracelets. I made 2 bracelets. Me and my sister, we printed out some photos and stuff, and we brought out some flowers as well.
Yeah, and you're a big One Direction fan. You've just said there how much of an impact their music has had on you, and I guess that now turns to remembering Liam in that way whenever you listen to his music now.
Yeah, it feels like that there's a piece of my childhood that's just now gone, and that can't come back, because obviously if One Direction do reunite, it won't feel the same as if it was the 5Ps, so it just feels very numb.
Well, Chloe, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That's just the view of one fan here that's gathered for the memorial, but there are hundreds around as many come to lay flowers, light candles and write their tributes to Liam Payne.
Well, let's get the thoughts now of my panel. Former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, fashion designer Jeff Banks and dating coach Kezia Noble. Right, well, I'm going to start with you, Jeff Banks. Very sad, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's incredibly sad that this young man, who is part of a movement of music which actually relates to very young people, and what is particularly sad about it is that he came out of a manufactured band. This is not a band that spent their life on the road together, living in a van, playing clubs, having a bond, and a life outside the music industry They were manufactured and immediately thrust into the limelight, playing gigs with literally tens of thousands of people at them, mollycoddled, almost looked after, and then dropped without any backup, any assistance in psychologically in what happens when your life ceases at the age of 25. And what do you actually do next? And I think this is sad when I watch this, that this young man who was incredibly talented, loved by millions of people, and just left on his own without any assistance. And that, for me, is the sadness here.
I think they do give a little bit of aftercare, but Kezia Noble, your thoughts?
It's very sad. A 31-year-old man at the prime of his life is dead. I don't know what more to add to that. It's very sad whether he was a pop star or not a pop star. I'm looking at the footage about how many people are, you know, coming out and, you know, paying their respects. It's similar, not as extreme as like when Princess Diana died. And I never got caught up in this. Like I was saying to you before, when Freddie Mercury died, I was upset. When Michael Jackson died, I was upset. I was like, there's a great talent gone. Yes, they were older than 31, but I've never felt like compelled to go out and show my grief because I didn't know them. They were just very, very talented men. But look, it's a tragedy. It's a 31-year-old guy. He's got a 7-year-old son, I believe.
Poor thing.
It's terrible.
I'm surprised by how many people have turned up, to be honest with you. I mean,
Really?
not least for the reasons just given, that I would expected people to be sad about it, but not necessarily to turn up in the park. So that's an interesting development for me today, to see that. I thought Jess' point was rather interesting about them being manufactured and then being dropped. And it's a bit like a lottery winner, actually. Someone who had a normal life, has no much money, standard job, suddenly ends up with £10 million from the lottery, no idea what to do with it, suddenly gets besieged with people who want money from them, and often they end up very, very unhappy. So it's that sudden transition that sometimes is difficult for people to handle.
Do you know what? In the movie industry, the studios actually look after their stars and they're on the big screen. In the music industry, they're actually playing in front of thousands of people. I think Amy Winehouse is another situation which is not dissimilar. And my experience of it, and it's not happening now, my first wife, Sandy Shaw, she actually, after her time in the spotlight, she actually ran a psychotherapy business that was contracted by record companies to look after young artists that needed psychological help. I don't think it exists now.
Well, I think a lot of the companies are trying to be better at that, but I think there needs to be much more.
They could be better.
I think they could do a lot better. But listen, stay tuned. Coming up, Supplement Sunday, when we discuss some of the stories that caught my panel's eye. Don't go anywhere.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm going to see your show, Behind the Shoulder Pads, one night only at the Adelphi Theatre, October the 22nd. You're talking about your extraordinary life. Stage, screen, published author, 19
TV,
books, TV, most important.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who's managed to straddle, 7, 8 decades in showbiz and still be at the top?
Yes, I was thinking about that the other day because somebody said, you know, the last is good. There is a Shirley MacLaine.
Sure.
She started the same time as me.
Right.
Sophia Loren.
Yeah.
She started around the same time.
She's not working much, though.
It's true, she's not, but she's still out there being, you know, a major icon. And of course, people like Dick Van Dyke, who's just almost 100.
Yeah, he's incredible,
you know,
isn't he?
I'm a mere babe next to him.
You are. But and I was thinking about, you've written some extraordinary, wicked, waspish diaries, which of course you can because you've worked with so many people. Look at the names: Frank Sinatra, Lana Turner, Elizabeth Taylor, Dean Martin, Gregory Peck,
Richard Burton,
Paul Newman. The list goes on.
Gene Kelly,
and
my
Gene
favourite.
Kelly. Was he your favourite?
Yes.
Why?
because I saw him in a movie when I was a little girl called For Me and My Gal with Judy Garland, and I just fell in love with him. It's such a cute movie. Well, they don't make movies like that anymore. And then I was lucky enough when I first went to Hollywood at age 20 to meet him and literally hang out with him and his friends. And then I put him in a movie with me that I produced. He played my husband in a movie called Sins. And he was wonderful. He was really wonderful.
The People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, listen, we're running out of time really quickly. So earlier in the show, I showed you a man identifying as a cat. Here is the rest of it.
Do currently have a California driver's license, you just don't have a physical copy on you at the moment.
That's my preferred method of identification.
And this is?
It's a cat collar. I'm currently identifying as a cat.
Fair enough. Well, look, we can do this the hard way if you'd like. I can have this car towed, because last I checked, a cat is not licensed to operate a motor vehicle in the state of California. We can have animal control come get you, take you to a shelter where your owner can retrieve you for a fee.
We didn't have time to play the whole thing, but yes, yeah, that is obviously a little skit that was done. I don't think it's actually a real thing, but it is funny, isn't it? If you follow the trail and people are going to say they identify as things like that, then take it seriously. And really, cats don't drive cars. But now it's time to supplement Sunday, the part of the show where my panel look at some of the stories that are hitting the headlines. Joining me, Norman Baker, Jeff Banks, and Kezia Noble. Right, Norman Baker, you've got something for me.
Front page of Sunday Times today. HS2. They don't know how much is overspent. It's 10 billion and latest, or 20 billion. They had no idea. And this is incredible. HS2 was a great idea, and it's been grotesquely mishandled from start to finish. What did the government do about it? They've got a ticket to Euston, they've got a ticket to Crewe, and let's hope it doesn't cost too much money.
Right, and Jeff Banks, your supplement.
Me, I'm seriously into cycling, so very sad to hear the news about Chris Hoy actually having cancer and now being told maybe 2 to 4 years to live. I sincerely hope that in that 2 to 4 years something may happen that gets found that actually turns that around. But all credit to him for actually coming out and telling everybody. And why? What it may do, hopefully, is convince guys to constantly get a medical, look after your health, go to the doctor regularly, and if they catch something soon enough, could save your life. And I think that will be the lesson that will come from Chris. And all credit to him, a great man.
Yeah, all credit to Chris Hoy. I second that, absolutely. Well, listen, if you've just tuned in, where have you been? It's near the end of the show now, but earlier on in the Great British Debate, I've got a poll up that's been on X throughout the show, and I've been asking, can Labour save the NHS? Well, the results are in. A damning 95% of you said no, and only 5% of you said yes. Unbelievable. Are you surprised by that, panel?
Yeah.
You surprised?
I'm not surprised, no, but clearly Labour wants a second opinion, I imagine, for that.
They probably will do. Very good. Well, I've got to say a huge thank you to my panel, former Liberal Democrat Norman Baker. Norman, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to see you in your smoking jacket again. Fabulous Jeff Banks, fashion designer Jeff Banks. Thank you so much, Jeff. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
And also dating coach Kezia Noble. Kezia, lovely to see you again. And as ever, a huge thank you to you at home for your company. Remember, you can download the GB News app where you can, of course, see all the programmes and at your leisure. And you can also stream everything live on YouTube. Well, listen, I look forward to seeing you on Friday at 9 o'clock for Britain's Newsroom. I will leave you with the weather forecast. But take care, have a fabulous week, and I'll see you soon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got Storm Ashley crossing the UK today, bringing some very strong winds, especially towards the northwest, with the rain gradually clearing towards the south. This is that area of low pressure named Storm Ashley. You can see a real squeeze in those isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds. We've got an amber warning in force, gusts of up to 70, possibly even 80 miles per hour, with outbreaks of showery rain through this evening and overnight. Drier towards the south, across Wales and southern parts of England, with lighter winds here as well. Otherwise staying rather mild tonight, generally lows 10 or 11 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is still going to be windy, especially across Scotland and towards Orkney and Shetland. Again, gusts 50 to 60, possibly even 70 miles per hour. There will be some brightness to start the day across eastern areas, though, through Monday morning, but showers already moving through across parts of western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, it is going to be largely cloudy, especially the far southeast you go, perhaps even with some outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning across the Channel Islands. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, blustery showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards England and Wales, though, largely dry, some hazy sunshine, cloudier towards the far southeast, where we may just see some heavy spells of rain. But there will be lighter winds out there compared to Sunday. Temperatures a little bit cooler at around 15 or 16 degrees. So through Monday evening, showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Towards the south, though, largely dry with clear skies as we go into Tuesday. But Tuesday leaves sunny spells, scattered showers, a little bit drier on Wednesday before turning a bit unsettled later in the week.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry.